Chapter 164. Thus, someone shouted at the other side, "Are you AF** King idiot? Can't you see that so many people have died on our side? Who would blow up their own people? Who knew that you guys?" Originally, the man in the white suit wanted to shout, "Who knows if the people on your side have brains?" But before he could finish his sentence, a sharp stone suddenly flew towards him. It went straight into his left eye. Oh! Ah! Immediately, this capable agent of the Heavenly Eye Group's confidential department let out a blood-curdling scream. He reached out to cover his left eye that had a stone embedded in it. After trembling violently, he collapsed to the ground. Now that they saw their comrade being blinded by a sneak attack after yelling at the group of rogue hunters, the other agents naturally couldn't stand it anymore. Despicable bastard! You want to fight just because you don't like it? Who's afraid of who, you bastard? Brothers! Kill them all! After this sudden incident of a stone injuring someone, the already tense atmosphere exploded in an instant. In an instant, it changed from a lot like a battlefield to a battlefield. The group of secret agents from the Heavenly Eye Group picked up their weapons and rushed to the other side. The group of gangsters from the underground world naturally wouldn't be beaten up for nothing. They also rushed over while shouting, "Ooh!" On the street that was still filled with smoke and dust, the two forces fought passionately. They fought with crowbars, machetes, electric shock devices, spiked knuckles, and other lethal weapons. The scene was very spectacular. Puff. Ha 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 ha. They actually started fighting. What a bunch of idiots. Dunya, who had already followed Ryuto to the rooftop of the third floor of the house next door, couldn't help but laugh when she saw the passionate battle scene on the street. It was obvious that the hidden stones that had ignited the atmosphere were not thrown by the rogue hunters. They did not have enough strength to blind someone with a stone from such a distance. The one who caused this huge misunderstanding was naturally Ryuto Kiryu on the rooftop. Only he would have such a vicious throwing technique and such bad intentions. When the two sides started fighting on the street below, Ryuto smiled and said to Dunya, "Don't laugh first, we still have some things to deal with." Over. The moment he said the last word, Ryuto quickly lowered his body and dodged to the side. Coincidentally, he dodged a black light from the shadows. Finally appeared the top assassin of the confidential department, the hidden ninja. Although Ryuto was talking and laughing with Dunya on the surface, in reality, he was already focused on guarding against attacks from all directions. After all, he knew that the real snake's appearance this time, as long as he came to this area, there was a high probability that he would be assassinated by the real ninja. In a situation where he was prepared in advance, even if it was a top assassin, it would not be easy to ambush Ryuto. When Ryuto dodged the real ninja's attack, Dunya immediately reacted and stared at the young assassin with a beast-like gaze. Dunya would never forget this assassin's appearance for the rest of her life. This was because he was the one who stabbed President Wu Hong in front of Dunya, giving her an unforgettable nightmare. But when he felt Dunya's breathing suddenly changed, Ryuto quickly reached out and grabbed her hand. He whispered, "Don't be rash, the two of us can't catch him, he's too agile." "Are we going to let him chase us?" "Not necessarily, we can do this." Before he finished his words, Ryuto quickly pulled Dunya to the side of the railing. "Want to run?" Seeing that Ryuto was about to jump down from the third floor with Dunya, the real ninja's figure flashed and chased after them. Tut tut tut. But before he could run a few steps, Ryuto fired a burst of submachine gun fire, forcing the real ninja to slow down a little in order to dodge the bullets. With Battle Dragon's current trashy gun skills, he could only use his gun to bully amateurs. Against an expert like True Snake, it was practically useless. But in the short time the real ninja retreated, Ryuto pulled Dunya and jumped down from the third floor. Clang! The two of them landed on the second floor balcony below. First, they directly stomped a big hole in the balcony floor, then jumped down and rushed into the chaotic crowd in front of them. Now was the time when the agents of the secret department and the rogue hunters who came to make money warmly hugged each other. Both sides fought back and forth on the street. Coupled with the aftermath of the rocket launcher explosion, there was still dust everywhere, which caused the visibility on the street to be extremely low. At a glance, it was a group of messy people fighting each other. Want to take this opportunity to escape. Dream on. But the real ninja was not so easy to deal with. He immediately jumped down from the third floor and chased after Ryuto and Dunya. At the same time, other people also noticed two big fat sheep stepping into the battlefield. A hooligan who was still passionately holding a machete and slashing at a man in a white suit with a baton saw Long Do and quickly shouted, "Hey, brothers! Fat sheep! Shut up, you're so noisy." Before the guy finished shouting, Ryuto took out a flash bomb from his pocket and threw it over there. It happened to explode on the head of the rogue. Bang! A huge sonic boom accompanied by a strong light went straight to the head. The rogue who talked a lot fainted on the spot, and blood kept flowing out of his ears. He would probably have to rely on a hearing aid for the rest of his life. Woo! When the flash bomb exploded, the strong light went straight into the eyes of everyone around, including the real ninja who just rushed over. Ryuto Kiryu. Where did he get these guys from? Was this a magic trick? The real ninja could swear to God that he definitely did not see Ryuto's pocket carrying a flash bomb. After all, it was impossible for such a big thing to not reveal its shape in the pocket. But being caught off guard by the flash bomb, even the professionally trained real ninja could not help but feel a little dizzy. The group of fishes around him were even worse. Ah! My eyes! My eyes! F*CKU. If we die together. Don't come over. Don't come over. I'll kill whoever comes over. The situation on the battlefield was already very chaotic, and after the flash bomb exploded, the scene was really a mess. Some went crazy and started hacking everywhere, some covered their eyes and crouched down, some pretended to be dead, and some hurriedly found a wall to lean against. The more chaotic it was, the more chaotic it was. There was already a lot of flying dust and rocks on the ground, and this group of people tossed and turned, causing the visibility of the area to drop to the lowest point. Only a few figures could be seen nearby. Damn, Ryuto Kiryu, where is that guy? Found him. Just as the real ninja was trying to regain his vision while looking for Ryuto's trace, he suddenly saw a very conspicuous spot. Suddenly, he saw a very conspicuous coordinate in front of him. It was a golden retriever that looked a little inferior. Everyone knew that Ryuto Kiryu had a low-quality golden retriever, so as long as the real ninja followed the golden retriever, there was a high chance that he would be found. Therefore, the real ninja rushed towards the nearest golden retriever without hesitation, and pierced through it with his hidden blade. Ah! The real ninja frowned when he heard the person scream, because it was obviously not Ryuto's voice. It doesn't matter if it's not him, that guy can't go far in this situation. As long as I continue to kill the golden retriever, I'll be able to dig him out sooner or later. With this thought in mind, the real ninja was like a death god looking for the golden retriever in this chaotic area, and soon he found another one. The golden hair was very eye-catching in the thick dust. It's you. Go to hell. The real ninja raised his hidden blade and rushed towards the figure, and the sharp weapon in his hand went straight for the person's heart. Someone wants to ambush me? Ignorant scoundrel. But unlike the previous golden retriever who was assassinated, this golden retriever in the dust seemed to have seen the real ninja's trace, and like lightning, he swung his two battle axes towards the real ninja. The sharp silver light shattered the surrounding dust, and when the real ninja finally reacted and hurriedly stopped his charge, the falling axe was only 5 centimeters away from his nose. Suddenly, the real ninja's eyes widened, because as the dust was scattered by the sharp axe, the man with golden hair, wearing a long wide windbreaker and black sunglasses, appeared in front of the real ninja. How is this Ryuto Kiryu? From the scene of this man waving his battle axes like a fucking baton, isn't this the big brother of the Amon clan, Yaman Kanzuya? At this distance, even if the real ninja's eyes were blurred, he could still recognize that this guy wasn't Ryuto. Moreover, he could tell that Yaman Kanzuya was different from ordinary underground thugs. This guy was a real assassin. Of course, it would be strange if the legendary Amon clan wasn't a real assassin. They were the elite assassins who openly launched rockets on the streets. After the axe almost split the real ninja in half, Kanzuya looked at the skinny man who was holding his hidden blade in a daze, and suddenly felt the aura of a fellow assassin from him. This skinny bamboo pole has a strong murderous aura on him. he's definitely a fellow assassin. As the saying goes, people of the same trade are enemies, and now that he was provoked, Kanzuya didn't need to think carefully about what he would do. Jiro, there's a robber here. Quickly come and kill him with me. Kanzuya picked up his battle axe and rushed towards the real ninja, while shouting to Jiro, who had joined the battle with a submachine gun. Tonight, the night was getting darker and darker, and this already messy scene became even more messy to the point where no one expected it to happen. While the real ninja was being chased by Kanzuya and Jiro with their battle axes and machine gun fire, the real ninja was in a sorry state. The culprit behind all of this had already taken his concubine to open the manhole cover of the battlefield and ran into an underground tunnel that was unknown how far away it was. Chapter 165. Drip, drip, drip. The sound of water dripping could be faintly heard in the sewer passage. Coupled with the damp and smelly air, it added to the discomfort of walking in this underground world. Can we not walk in the sewer next time? There's a fishy smell on my clothes, and there's also sticky sewage. Ugh. Walking in this gloomy sewer area with Ryuto, Dunya pinched her nose and showed a look of disgust. The sewer where Narukai picked up the two was often used by workers, and the inside was relatively clean. However, the suburban sewer was neglected, and the filth inside was obvious. Even walking on the sidewalk next to it was quite disgusting. But Ryuto was obviously too lazy to care about Dunya's feelings, and he casually replied, "Miss, we are running for our lives, do you know that? Do you think we are traveling?" "That's true. Where are we going next? Those guys shouldn't be able to catch up with us, right?" Dunya said while turning her head to look at the dark sewer behind them. Based on the fact that the Secret Service agents were fighting with the rogue hunters, as well as the fact that the Amon clan was involved in a scuffle with the real Snake, it seemed like it would take a while for the chaos to return to normal. By the time they realized that their targets had escaped through the sewers, the two of them were already nowhere to be seen. "I don't know, let's go up and see where we are." After walking for a while, Ryuto looked at the stairs that extended upward not far away, and after gesturing to Dunya, he took the lead and climbed up. Ryuto carefully climbed to the top of the sewer, opened the sewer cover from the inside, and then poked his head out. After poking his head out, what appeared in front of him was a street with clear neon lights and pedestrians. Because the battle area not long ago was actually close to the center of Yoto, after walking for a while in the sewer, the place where the two appeared must be a more prosperous area. Since it was a bustling area, there would be a lot of people even at night, and it would be safer for the two to blend in. Therefore, although he didn't know where this place was, Long Tu still opened the sewer cover when the passers-by weren't paying attention and quickly pulled Dunya out. After pulling Dunya out, Ryuto followed her to the street without leaving a trace, while picking up the phone and using the GPS map to locate their location. From the display of the phone, this place was located in the corner of Yoto Setagaya, and it was quite close to the lively Shibuya and port. Most of the previous incidents occurred in the port. Of course, it was also the closest place to the port, the best place to throw people to be fed to the fish. But no matter what, after going through the sewers, it became very difficult to track down Long Do and Dunya. This was equivalent to the two finally getting rid of the threat of the pursuers, which also made Ryuto breathe a deep sigh of relief. After relaxing, he immediately felt that his body became extremely tired. But this was also a matter of course. After all, he had been preparing for the kidnapping work since the night before. Yesterday afternoon, he hid in Union's skirt and went into the hotel, and he also experienced various tests. Even if he was made of iron, he was still tired. So Ryuto said to Dunya as he walked, "There should be no problem for the time being since we are here. Let's find a place to rest. I also want to take a shower. I'm so smelly." "Ah, I see it. There is a hotel there." Dunya looked at her little princess dress that was stained by the sewage and dirt of the sewer with disgust, then she quickly glanced at the street, then she pulled Ryuto and ran not far away. Since this was not the suburbs of Yoto, it was normal to have hotels on the street. So Ryuto didn't think much at first, but he walked over there with Dunya. But just as he approached the door of the hotel with strange neon lights, Ryuto was stunned. There was nothing strange about a hotel or a hotel. But if there was a Love Hotel sign hanging at the door of the hotel, then it was a bit strange. Love Hotel, commonly known as a lover's hotel, was generally a place for people to use. Everyone knew it. On the bustling streets of Kyoto, hotels with such neon signs could be seen everywhere, and people also had a tacit understanding of the existence of such places. At most, they would show a strange smile when passing by. But obviously, Dunia, who grew up in Russia, didn't know what this Love Hotel was. She just saw the hotel behind, and she hurriedly wanted to take a shower and change the smelly clothes on her body. After noticing that the place where Dunia was about to rush in was not ordinary, Ryuto quickly grabbed her hand and dissuaded her. Wait. Let's change to another hotel? This hotel is not very good. Not very good? Dunia showed a puzzled expression when she heard the words. She turned her head and glanced around the street before frowning. There is only one hotel nearby. What's wrong with this hotel? The wind. The feng shui is not good. You may encounter ghosts. Ryuto naturally couldn't tell her where the hotel was, so he could only reply perfunctorily. I'm here, what are you afraid of? Dunia reached out and patted her chest. She said confidently, even if Sadako comes out, I will punch her back to the TV. Is that okay? This is still a bit. Don't be so wishy-washy. Act like a man. Follow me in. It seemed that she was irritated by Ryuto's hesitant attitude. Dunia's face changed, and she directly pulled Ryuto toward the Love Hotel. Act like a man. If I really act like a man, then you are finished tonight. In desperation, Ryuto could only sigh and accompany her into this special hotel with a neon sign. Different from ordinary hotels, the lobby of Love Hotel had layers of partitions and screens. After entering the door, it was almost impossible to see other people. What's going on? Why is this place so strange? Although she was shocked by the strange decoration inside, Dunia quickly found the front desk of the hotel, or found the small window. The front desk of this hotel was really a small window, and the window was hung with half a curtain. The staff sitting inside couldn't see the face of the guests outside, and the guests couldn't see the staff's face. This special design was naturally to provide the best privacy for the guests staying in the hotel, to ensure that no trace would be left from entering to leaving. Of course, entering the Love Hotel didn't require an ID card to register. You only needed to pay and take the room card to check in. However, although they couldn't see her face, when they saw Dunia's petite body, the staff inside hesitated when handing over the room card. In the end, they resisted the idea of calling the police. After all, Long Do had stuffed a $10,000 bill into the cashier's hand and generously said, "Keep the change." That was why the cashier decided to pretend that he hadn't seen anything. This was the charm of a player who spent a lot of money. When they picked up the room card and entered the suite, what appeared in front of them was a pink bedroom with a special decoration style. The large pink round bed looked quite sturdy, and 2 large "yes" were written on the 2 pillows. The heart-shaped floral carpet extended from the bed to the glass bathroom. There was a large pink bathtub in the bathroom, and there were some very explicit murals hanging on the wall. The slightly dim light added a charming and affectionate atmosphere to the room. Coupled with the bedside table with all kinds of special utensils, it was easy to feel the beauty of life and the primitive wildness of it. It was Dunia's first time in this kind of place, and Ryuto was obviously the same. Therefore, the moment he entered the door, he instinctively reached out to cover his head, and at the same time, he felt a sharp pain in his head. It's over. If Dunia knows where this place is in the future, she will beat me to death. Although Dunia took the initiative to enter this hotel, Ryuto didn't think that a woman in an angry state would be so reasonable. In the end, the fault would still be on him. However, Dunia seemed to like this room very much. After she entered the door, she immediately ran in happily. She curiously looked around and laughed. Ha ha ha, this room is really interesting. When I go back, I have to ask my family to decorate my room like this. Don't. They will think that your brain is damaged. What did you say? Louder, I can't hear you. It's okay, you do what you need to do. I will rest for a while. For some reason, Ryuto felt even more tired after entering this hotel. Therefore, he took the pillow from the large round bed and threw it on the carpet, and plopped down on it. There was only one bed in the room. If someone were to sleep on it, it would be Dunia. Ryuto didn't want to sleep with her. It was too early, at least a year later. Cough cough. Just as Ryuto dizzily fell asleep on the carpet, Dunia looked at the sloppy guy. Her small mouth slightly curled up and let out a cold snort. Humph, he didn't even take a shower, didn't even change his clothes before sleeping. What a stinky man, so dirty. After despising Ryuto, Dunia quickly changed into disposable slippers and ran to the bathroom. She turned on the tap and began to run the water. She was ready to take a hot bath. When the water level gradually rose, Dunia threw the dirty clothes on her body to the side and poured a large bottle of shower gel into it. Only then did she sit in the bathtub. Phew, paradise, this is... What kind of bullshit experience was that before? Really, I don't want to go into the sewer again in this life. As her whole body sat in the bathtub, her tired body was wrapped in warm hot water and fragrant shower gel. Dunia's small face also showed a happy expression. Just as Ryuto was resting on the carpet and Dunia was happily soaking in the bath. Time passed by. An hour later, a familiar phone number interrupted Ryuto's sleep. Chapter 166. Who's calling so late at night? When Ryuto was woken up by the ringing of the phone, he was still half asleep. So he picked up the phone impatiently and realized that the phone had changed. It wasn't the model he used before, so he realized that he wasn't paralyzed at home. Because he changed his phone, the number on the phone didn't show his identity, but Ryuto remembered that it was Colored Glaze's number. Hello. Colored Glaze? He pressed the answer button and said weakly. Hearing his voice, Lu Li, who was on the other side, was obviously shocked. She immediately asked with concern, Ryuto? Are you okay? You sound terrible. I'm fine, just a bit tired. Why are you calling me at this time? Ryuto looked at the time on the phone. It was already 4 in the morning. It had been 8 hours since Ryuto escaped from the Tokyo Emperor Hotel. After seeing that Ryuto was fine, Colored Glaze immediately said excitedly, Listen to me first, Sensible has successfully stolen the Otsuka Mist Ghosts online account. The 1 billion bounty for you and Dunia has been cancelled. Oh. That's great news. Suddenly, Ryuto was energized. He quickly sat up from the carpet and said with a smile, Well done. That guy must be furious right now, right? It's not that angry, but it's definitely scared. The fog ghost should be trembling right now. Trembling? Why would he tremble? What did you do tonight, don't you know? What I did tonight. Ah, is that what happened? After hearing Colored Glaze's words, Ryuto couldn't help but pat his head. Since the announcement of the 1 billion bounty, thousands of residents of the underground world found Ryuto, and at least 200 to 300 people died by his hands. Originally, everyone was a piece of trash that licked blood from the edge of the blade to make a living. It was very normal for people to die for wealth and birds to die for food. There was nothing to complain about. The key point was that this wealth had to be right in front of him. He couldn't just take back the wealth, all of a sudden. Just as the group of rogue hunters continued to search for Ryuto in the middle of the night, the boss who had posted a reward of 1 billion on the internet suddenly cancelled the reward. The result was naturally like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. Are you kidding me? King offered a bounty of 1 billion yuan for us to risk our lives for you. Now, we've even risked our lives for you. We've been desperately searching for you the entire night, and you're announcing the cancellation of the bounty soon after? Are you treating us like monkeys? As a result, the forum of the Saiji River Original Love website was suddenly filled with a storm. Many people were cursing and shouting to find the fog ghost and hang it on the street lamp to thank the world. The worst part was that even the Amon family immediately changed sides and announced that they would take the mist ghost's head to vent their anger at being toyed with. That scene was incredibly terrifying. Of course, after realizing the situation, the mist ghost could have posted another 1 billion yen bounty to solve the problem. At most, he would have lost another 100 million. However, the current him couldn't do that at all. According to Colored Glaze, when Sensible stole the forum account this time, he also found the Missed Ghost's bank account. Although he couldn't find the password and couldn't transfer the money inside, under Colored Glaze's instructions, Sensible deliberately used the Missed Ghost's account to enter the wrong password 6 times in a row. When using a Japanese bank account, as long as you enter the wrong password 3 times, you will be notified. But if you enter the wrong password 6 times, it will cause the account to be locked. You have to bring your ID card to the bank to unlock it. The problem was that it was still 4 in the morning, but the bank opened at 9 in the morning. So, even if the fog ghost wants to withdraw money from his bank account and post another bounty, he will have to wait until at least 9 in the morning. These 5 hours will be extremely difficult to endure. At this point, Colored Glaze's lips curled into a joyful smile. It was as if she could see the fog ghost trembling and pale from fright from a long distance away. Good one. Kanzaki Colored Glaze, you're truly vicious. After understanding the whole sequence of events, Ryuto couldn't help but shiver. He admired Colored Glaze's insidious method of turning the situation around. However, no matter how ruthless Colored Glaze's methods were, she was using them on outsiders, so it didn't matter how ruthless she was. More importantly, after this 1 billion bounty was over, the entire Ryuto Kiryu kidnapping incident was about to come to an end. After all, without the interference of the rogue hunters, the Heavenly Eye group was also in a terrible state because of the fog ghost. With the interference of the Kamiyoshi clan and the Sai-Tu guild, it was difficult for these factions to pose any threat to Ryuto. This way, Ryuto and Dunya could peacefully hide here until the tunnel to the nesting duck prison was finished. Colored Glaze had been paying attention to the tunnel's progress. Now that more than 80% of the tunnel's length had been dug, it would be completed in a few more hours. Once the tunnel was completed, Ryuto would be able to bring Dunya out, and Ryuto would be able to openly bring Dunya to the hospital where Sai-Tu Takahiro was. He would return Dunya and explain the whole sequence of events to Takahiro. Everything was going so smoothly that Ryuto couldn't help but laugh out loud. It wasn't easy. In the end, the goddess of victory is still on my side, who told me to be the main character. However, just as Ryuto was about to laugh out loud, a shout from the bathroom not far away pulled him into the depths of hell. Not long ago, Dunya was happily soaking in the bathtub. She only reluctantly climbed out of the bathtub when the hot water that was refilled 3 times turned cold. However, when she was drying herself with a towel and preparing to change her clothes, she realized that she seemed to have forgotten something important. Oh no, I forgot that there are no spare clothes here. This is troublesome. Suddenly, Dunya looked at the dirty and smelly princess dress that she threw aside and frowned in disgust. She had no choice but to shout at Ryuto outside, "Ryuto, is there any clothes outside? I don't have any clothes to wear, hurry up and find me one." After all, there were only the 2 of them in the room, and Dunya couldn't go out to look for Long Do without any clothes to wear, so it was normal for her to shout at Long Do, who seemed to have woken up and was on the phone. However, at this time, Ryuto happened to be in the process of talking to Colored Glaze on the phone. And Dunya's voice was very loud, so her voice directly entered Colored Glaze's ears on the phone. This voice is... Dunya. What did she say? Ryuto? I don't have any clothes to wear? The moment Luli heard this, she couldn't help but drop the phone she was holding onto the ground. This was because this sentence really sounded like something. Ryuto also trembled when he heard Dunya's words. He quickly covered the phone and replied, "Don't shout. Can't you hear that I'm on the phone? So you want me to wrap myself in a towel like this? I don't want to. It's so cold that I'll catch a cold," Dunya said as she leaned out of the bathroom and said to Ryuto relentlessly. But when she leaned out half of her body, the scene was really quite beautiful. Not to mention the little bear's personality that was completely inconsistent with her appearance. Dunya, this little girl, was really beautiful in terms of face and figure. She had obviously taken a good bath. She was only wrapped in a bath towel, and her tender and white shoulders, collarbones, thighs, and feet were all exposed. Coupled with the wet white hair sticking to her body, this scene was simply enough to make one's index finger twitch. If he thought that this was Love Hotel, and there was a big round bed full of yes pillows next to him, then this made Ryuto's brain almost tilted, and some strange thoughts that shouldn't have appeared in his mind. After being shocked by the beauty of the white-haired loli at this time, his hand that covered the phone unconsciously slipped down a little. With this slip, the conversation between the two was once again heard by Colored Glaze, who had just picked up the phone and quickly turned the volume to the maximum. Wait for me to hang up the phone, and I'll find you clothes, okay? Who's over there? Look at how nervous you are. You look like a thief. Anyway, it has nothing to do with you. Go in and wait, it'll be done soon. What, if it wasn't for you messing around without saying a word and making my body full of sticky fishy smell, would I have no clothes to wear? You have to be responsible. Humph. After complaining, Dunia returned to the bathroom and sat on the table next to the bathtub. She pouted her little mouth unhappily. Of course, Dunia's last sentence was really not an exaggeration, nor was there any ambiguity. Messing around without saying a word equals suddenly opening the sewer cover and pulling Dunia in, sticky fishy smell all over my body, equals sewage and fishy smell in the sewer. You have to be responsible equals you have to get me new clothes. For people who knew what happened not long ago, the truth was that simple. But for Colored Glaze who didn't know the situation over there, these words were really very ambiguous. Messing around without saying a word? A sticky fishy smell? You have to be responsible? After hearing this conversation, Colored Glaze couldn't help but open her mouth wide, and a scene that matched the description of this conversation appeared in her mind. In that imagined scene, Ryuto's beastly nature towards Dunia, who was wearing beautiful clothes, and without even taking off her clothes, just as Colored Glaze's mind was imagining Ryuto being hung as a street lamp, Ryuto picked up the phone again and asked, "Hello, Colored Glaze, it's a bit noisy here, you." "Go to hell." "Ah, you. What did you say?" "Go to hell, perverted lolicon, perverted lolicon, perverted lolicon." After 3 consecutive perverted lolicon, Colored Glaze's tone became more and more agitated, and in the end, she even used all of her strength to shout. Of course, the usually calm Colored Glaze rarely lost her composure to this extent, and it was obvious that Ryuto's actions this time really angered her to the point of having a blood clot in her brain. "Ryuto Kiryu. From today onwards, we'll cut off all ties. You go to your 18 levels of hell. I'll cross my single-plank bridge. Wait. Why am I the 18 levels of hell? Where did the path of the sun go? Also, is there something wrong with you?" Before Ryuto could figure out what Colored Glaze misunderstood, the other side fiercely hung up the phone. What the hell is this?" Ryuto tried calling a few more times, only to find that his number had been blacklisted. Only then did he realize that he was in grave danger. He never would have thought that the greatest danger he encountered today wouldn't come from the Heavenly Eye Group, nor the Saitu Guild, nor would it come from the Amon clan. Instead, it would come from Kanzaki cutting off all ties with Colored Glaze. Chapter 167. What the F***CK? What did I do to deserve this? After being hung up by Colored Glaze, Ryuto quickly went to find a set of pajamas and threw it to Dunia. Then, he frantically sent all kinds of explanations to Colored Glaze, but there was no reply. In a situation where there was no other way, Ryuto could only call Sensible and ask him. Only then did he know that Colored Glaze ran away after smashing the phone. He didn't know where she went. This is troublesome. She seems to be quite angry. Looking at Dunia, who had changed into her pajamas, lying on the bed and sleeping, Ryuto, who was sitting on the carpet, couldn't fall asleep. Although Colored Glaze was usually a reasonable person, no matter how reasonable she was only a 16-year-old girl. She still had the temper of a young girl. But even if he couldn't fall asleep, time would always pass by. In this awkward atmosphere, a few hours quickly passed, and this night full of disasters and troubles also came to an end. With the sound of the bell at around 8 o'clock in the morning, Gao Yuan, who had been digging for a long time under the Nest Duck prison, finally saw the long-awaited dawn. The group of brawny men from the Rulong Security Company waved various digging tools with their thick arms. After digging for a long time, the tunnel was finally completely penetrated. The internal building of the Nest Duck Prison also appeared in front of everyone. "It's through! It's through! It's through! Finally! Ha 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 ha!" When he saw this scene, Gao Yuan could not help but laugh out loud. However, after laughing for a while, he fell back and fainted. After all, Gao Yuan had been supervising the work here since yesterday morning. At the same time, he was in charge of communicating with Mingji and Liuli, who were in the central command room. He had not rested for over 10 hours and was exhausted. However, Gao Yuan's efforts were not in vain. Under the command of this excellent management genius, the labor force of the Rulong Security Company was maximized by him, which was also a major reason why the tunnel could be dug so quickly. "Well done, leave the rest to us." After arranging for people to carry Gao Yuan out of the sewer, 16 Knights Dancing Costume, who was in charge of leading the team to rescue Yuma, quietly sneaked in with a few elite subordinates and sneaked into the heavily guarded, nesting duck prison. Although they managed to sneak into the inner area by digging a hole, it was still quite difficult to get to the confinement room area where Tong Shang Yima was. Fortunately, Colored Glaze had already come up with a rescue plan before they left. Sensible was also on the side, using his hacking skills to help Dancing Costume and the others. Following the Dancing Costume, the rescue team, who had changed into their nesting duck prison uniforms, sneaked into the prison. After relying on Sensible to open a few electronic locks, they finally saw the man in the confinement room. Crack, creak. Although it was still early in the morning, Tong Shang Yima in the confinement room had already gotten up early as usual. In the small confinement room, he did simple exercises like push-ups as usual. When he did the 386th push-ups, the door of the confinement room was slowly pushed open, and a young woman wearing a prison guard uniform sneaked in. When he saw Dancing Costume, Yima, who was somewhat thin, but in a good state of mind, said without hesitation, "You must have spent a lot of effort to sneak in here, but I'm very sorry, I don't plan to break out of prison." With Yima's eyesight and experience, he could naturally see that Dancing Costume was not a prison guard here, and clearly expressed that she did not want to break out of prison. Yima had always adhered to the simple and unadorned way of chivalry. He was a righteous person, and he resisted righteously. How could he do something as immoral as breaking out of prison? That was absolutely unacceptable. But Dancing Costume seemed to be prepared for this, so she did not say anything. Instead, she took out a letter personally written by Colored Glaze and handed it over. In this letter personally written by Colored Glaze, the young lady first explained the current situation to Yima, and then used a tone full of persuasion to write a bunch of preaching words. "I hope you don't overly adhere to the so-called chivalry path. Chivalry is not inflexible, and it does not mean that you are a hostage, and it does not mean that you are a burden to your family and friends." Ha 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 ha. After reading the letter sent by Colored Glaze, Yima could not help but laugh. Generally speaking, Tong Shang Yima, as the head of the Rulong group, both the black and white sides would give him some face. Naturally, it has been a long time since someone dared to directly reprimand him like this. But Colored Glaze dared, and did not give him any face at all. The only thing missing was the words, "Are you an idiot?" written clearly on the letter. But although Yima was somewhat simple, he was not a narrow-minded person. He even felt that Colored Glaze's words were quite reasonable. So he nodded at Dancing Costume, smiled and said, "Your young lady is right. I am too pedantic, and indeed cause trouble for everyone. You flatter me. Anyway, let's hurry up and leave." After seeing that Yima was willing to break out of prison with her, Dancing Costume finally let out a sigh of relief. Just like this, Dancing Costume had Yima change into the prison guard uniform that they brought. The two of them opened the door and walked out, all the way back to the tunnel that they dug before. When they saw their boss, whom they hadn't seen for a long time, walk out alone, the members of Rulong Security Company standing in the sewer were so excited that their eyes were brimming with tears. "It's the leader. The leader is finally out. Woo-woo. That's great. We didn't dig so many tunnels in vain. Idiot. What are you crying for? Don't make a fool of yourself. We have to congratulate the leader on his return. In the crowded sewer, Yima looked at the brothers who had been digging the tunnel for a whole day. They were already tired and covered in dust. He couldn't help but sigh deeply. Therefore, he instinctively wanted to give a passionate speech to express his gratitude to his brothers, but he was quickly pushed away by the dancers who followed behind him. In short, let's leave first. After Mr. Yima goes out, we have to inform young Master Ryuto to bring people to the hospital to return Miss Saito. Although he knew that Yima must have a lot to say to this group of old subordinates, Dancing Costume still had to let them solve the business first, and this was not the place to talk. When he heard the words, Miss Saito, Yima couldn't help but ask, "Return Miss Saito? Is that Miss Saito Takeo's daughter?" "Yes, President Takeo is now receiving treatment in a private hospital under our Kamiyoshi clan. We have to wait for young Master Ryuto to bring people to the hospital." Speaking of this, Dancing Costume quickly picked up the phone and sent a mission-completed message to Miss Colored Glaze on the other side. However, Yima pondered for a few seconds, then said, "Takeo. I will also go to the hospital with him. I am an old friend of Takeo. It should be easier to explain with me." "Ah, is that so?" "That's not a problem." Dancing Costume never heard that Kiryu Yima and Takeo Saito were old friends, but since they took the initiative to explain together, Dancing Costume could only nod and agree. Just like this, after Yima escaped from the Nest Duck prison, he directly sat in the car outside the sewer and drove to the Kansai First Hospital, where Takeo Saito was. At the same time, Ryuto and Dunya, who had rested for a few hours in the Love Hotel, finally checked out and left. The person in charge of receiving them was a black car driven by Kamida Momo. The two sat in the car and looked at the daily morning scenery outside the window. There was an inexplicable feeling of unreality. Dunya couldn't help but ask, "That, after you send me there, will everything be over?" "Yes, or else. Before we were chased by so many strong enemies, I thought we would have to fight a strong enemy in the end." "Do you think we are playing a game? There is a final boss." Ryuto naturally scoffed at Dunya's naive words. However, when the car drove to the entrance of the Kansai First Hospital, the two got out of the car and walked into the hospital. Only then did he realize that Dunya's words seemed to be correct. Because in the waiting area at the entrance of the hospital, there was a beautiful woman wearing a clean, simple but dignified kimono with her black hair tied up high. When she saw Ryuto's stunned figure after entering the door, Kansai Ruehue, who was leisurely drinking a cup of tea, showed a faint smile. She put down the teacup and waved at Ryuto. Well, it seems that the final boss does exist." When he saw the master of Kamiyoshi here early in the morning, Ryuto's mouth couldn't help but twitch, but he still signaled Dunya to wait on the side, and he walked over in a dignified manner. After arriving at the hospital's waiting area, Ryuto casually sat on another chair, just opposite of Ruehue. Ruehue wasn't angry, but asked with a smile, "You don't plan to stand next to me this time?" "Ryuto Kiryu. Or would it be better to call you Lilon?" Obviously, after one night, Ruehue had completely understood Ryuto's identity. After all, Lilon didn't exist in this world, and Ryuto also kidnapped Dunya after that, so it didn't take much to figure out who the waiter was. Therefore, after hearing Ruehue's words, Ryuto wasn't surprised, but replied with a smile, "No, there are too many people around you, I'm afraid there's no place to stand." As Ryuto said, he casually glanced around the waiting area. As far as the eye could see, there were at least 3 guardian ninjas, protecting Ruehui. Although they hid very well, Ryudo was still able to see some clues. But Ryuto didn't care about the ninjas hidden around at all. What he cared about now was Ruehue's attitude. At the beginning of the Dunya kidnapping plan, he didn't consider the situation that Ruehue would appear, which led to Ryuto accidentally having a certain degree of contact with the former Hakusho. Then, when the incident was about to end, how would Ruehue's attitude towards Ryuto change? This was what Ryuto felt a headache. Chapter 168. From an objective point of view, Ryuto did indeed lie to Ruehui. He faked his own identity to contact Rue Hui and made up a fake name, Li Lan, to fool her. It was indeed a bit too much. But from another objective point of view, Ryuto also helped Rue Hui, mainly in the Saito Taoism incident. But which of the two was more important, it was entirely up to Rue Hui to decide. So when he sat in front of Rue Hui, Ryuto felt a bit uneasy and didn't know what she would say. Of course, compared to Ryuto who didn't know what she was thinking, Rue Hui's attitude was much calmer. She just sat on the chair with her back straight. Although it was just an ordinary chair in the waiting room, the posture of this lady sitting on it still gave a feeling of grace and elegance, as if an empress was sitting on the throne. Moreover, Rue Hui's eyes were staring straight at Ryuto without any hesitation. She didn't even stop staring at him until his scalp went numb. A minute passed, Rue Hui didn't speak, and Ryuto didn't dare to speak either. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes passed, and Rue Hui still had a faint smile on her face as she looked at the young man opposite her. Her calm face didn't reveal any thoughts, and it was impossible to tell whether she was happy or angry. Is this considered torture? After being stared at by Rue Hui for 5 minutes, Ryuto finally couldn't help but ask, "Madame Rue Hui, what's the situation now?" President Wu Hong's side is fine. Bring Dunia in and explain to him, and everything will be over. Isn't this the plan you and Colored Glaze made? It went very smoothly, congratulations. No, I'm asking you, what's the situation now? Was it after knowing my identity? What do you plan to do? What do I plan to do? That's a good question. Immediately, Rue Hui clapped her hands with a smile and asked in a cheerful tone, "What do you think I should do to a brat who colluded with my daughter to scheme against the Kamiyoshi clan and approached me with a fake identity?" Rue Hui smiled very happily, and because she was a great beauty, her smile was very beautiful. In a situation where Ryuto's side was filled with 15 or 16-year-old girls, when such a great beauty smiled in front of him, that kind of mature charm couldn't help but make his eyes light up. My ass. It was so scary. When Rue Hui faced him with such a strange attitude, Ryuto's first reaction was to run away. After all, he couldn't predict how the master of Kamiyoshi would deal with him. Just thinking about it was terrifying. Noticing Ryuto's tense body, Rue Hui shook her head and said, "Don't be so nervous. To think that you're a real man who dares to say in front of Bunnyball that you like Colored Glaze. He has a high opinion of you, saying that you're the kind of guy who doesn't care about your life when it comes to women." Is that so? I'm honored, although it doesn't sound like a compliment at all. So you really like Colored Glaze? Not just for fun, but to swear that you'll marry her? When he was suddenly asked this question, Ryuto froze. The reason why he, Ryuto Kiryu, had an irreconcilable conflict with the Kamiyoshi clan was because of Colored Glaze. This point, as the master of the clan, Rue Hui naturally knew, so her question was somewhat thought-provoking. But even so, Ryuto still took a deep breath and said seriously, "That's right, it's like that." Really? However, at this time, Rue Hui showed a tacit expression and said with a bitter smile, "But it can't be helped. After all, Colored Glaze is too cute, it's normal to be charmed by her." What? In Ryuto's impression, Rue Hui was a very strict mother. After hearing those rude words, she would definitely scold him on the spot. Who knew that she would say something like that? So Ryuto couldn't help but open his mouth wide with a look of disbelief. And his expression seemed to have caused Rue Hui to misunderstand. She frowned and said, "What do you mean? Isn't Colored Glaze cute?" No, of course she's cute, but I didn't expect you to. You didn't expect that I, the high and mighty, cold and ruthless, treacherous and cunning Kamiyoshi clan master, would have such a normal side, right? As if she knew what Ryuto was surprised about, Rue Hui didn't hesitate to say it for him. Indeed, although Ryuto was embarrassed to say it out loud, he did have such an understanding in his heart. In the game Red Photo Album 2, No Survivors, there weren't many descriptions of Rue Hui Kamiyoshi. Strictly speaking, she didn't even appear more than a few times, and she died in the middle of the game. From a player's point of view, she was a very strict mother. And because she shouldered the responsibility of a large family, it was difficult for her to have any human emotions. She gave people the feeling that she was very businesslike and difficult to get close to. But after interacting with Rue Hui a few times, Ryuto realized that this woman wasn't like that at all. She seemed to be a daughter lover? Colored Glaze, that child, is quite attentive this time. She even dared to use me. Well done. Haha. Although she's been smart since she was young, she doesn't have much drive when she does things. I'm getting impatient watching her from behind, but this time, she's surprisingly motivated. That's great. But when I think about how this motivation came about because of a man, I really want to kill you. Crack. Rue Hui laughed as she clenched her fist. The word, Oki, appeared on her forehead. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Ryuto also raised the white flag on the spot and made a French military salute as he charged towards Rue Hui's position. I'm just joking. I'm just trying to liven up the atmosphere. Don't mind it so much. I didn't expect you to have such a sense of humor. Although it didn't seem like she was joking, Ryuto couldn't help but secretly complain. Okay, let's get back to the topic. If you really like Colored Glaze, and she doesn't hate how you look, I actually don't object to you two being together. After adjusting her expression, Rue Hui said this without any warning, which shocked Ryuto, who wasn't prepared at all. Is this also a joke? I'm not joking. After all, you've played the Kanzaki family, Heavenly Eye Group, Sai 2 Guild Hall, and everyone else in this incident. This has fully demonstrated your ability. That's why I can entrust Azurite to you without worry so that you can deal with the upcoming chaotic world. Suddenly, Rue Hui looked up at the ceiling of the hospital as if she could see the clear sky above through the layers of floors. The upcoming chaotic world, for ordinary people, Rue Hui's words sounded a bit strange. But Ryuto could completely understand what she meant, because in the next 1 or 2 years, there would indeed be a huge wave that would turn this island into the center of the whirlpool of war. But the question was, how did Rue Hui know? Also, her words sounded like she was entrusting her child to him? Now Ryuto suddenly felt that the situation was not right, and he quickly asked, Mrs. Rue Hui, do you know something that others don't know? Well, do you really want to hear this? Then come closer. Rue Hui narrowed her eyes slightly and motioned Ryuto to sit next to her. Driven by curiosity, Ryuto quickly moved the chair to Rue Hui's side and sat next to his mother-in-law. After sitting down, Rue Hui leaned her head over and took the initiative to put her face close to Ryuto's ear. A fragrance like orchid floated into Ryuto's nose from her body, and at the same time, he could vaguely feel a little warm touch around him. Such a beautiful woman whispered in his ear. This should be a scene that was enough to make people blush and their heart beat faster. However, after hearing Rue Hui's whisper, Ryuto's eyes suddenly widened. Because what Rue Hui said to him was, I actually have a terminal illness, and there is less than a year left. Don't tell others. When saying this, Rue Hui's voice was very soft, so soft that the ninjas protecting her couldn't hear it. When Ryuto heard this, he turned his head stiffly. Looking at the smiling face, he didn't know what to say for a moment. Indeed, Rue Hui's words were true. Because in the near future, the leader of the Kamiyoshi clan will indeed die at that time. However, the reason mentioned in the game was that Rue Hui's body wasn't good, and the intensification of the struggle with the Heavenly Eye group caused her to be mentally and physically exhausted, so she fell ill. But from what Rue Hui said now, she actually had another illness, and he had been clear about it for a long time. It was because she knew that she would die, so after discovering Ryuto's talent, she came forward to propose this deal. Seeing Ryuto's stiff expression, Rue Hui added, Colored Glaze is good at everything, but she's too naive and not vicious enough. If she wants to gain a foothold in the Kamiyoshi clan and take over my position, she needs a suitable helper. So that's why you chose me? That's right. After I leave, the Kamiyoshi clan will definitely experience some turmoil. Many demons and ghosts that don't dare to come out to cause trouble when I'm around will come out from the gutter. When that time comes, I'll need a strong fist to smash their skulls. Although Rue Hui's tone was normal and she had a smile on her face, when she said the last sentence, there was a hint of viciousness. For a large clan like the Komiyoshi clan, while they were surrounded by enemies, there were also many messy internal problems. These problems would only surface after Rue Hui died. Logically speaking, the person who should have taken over Rue Hui's position should have been her younger sister, Konoshiro Jingyan. If Jingyan was still around, there wouldn't be so much trouble. However, the problem was that Jingyan still needed 2 years to step down from her position as the vegetarian king, but Rue Hui couldn't last that long. At most, she only had 1 year left to live. During this 1 year, Colored Glaze had to replace the Komiyoshi clan leader. Otherwise, the position of clan leader would temporarily fall into the hands of that useless Komoshiro Yoshiyuki. Rue Hui was very clear about her brother's abilities. He couldn't do anything and couldn't eat enough. If he took over the position, he would probably lose all of his family's wealth within a year. Jingyan would definitely be left with a huge mess. That was why Rue Hui hoped that Colored Glaze could receive Ryuto's help. At the very least, during that 1 year, he would help her suppress the demons and ghosts in the clan. In return, Rue Hui would accept Ryuto's fake identity, Li Lan, as her adopted son and help him enter the Komiyoshi clan's center of power. Apart from this, she would also provide assistance to the Rulong Group and the Rulong Security Company. She would also guarantee that Ryuto would have the right to marry Colored Glaze 20 years later. It had to be said that Rue Hui's current conditions were truly generous. They were so generous that Ryuto almost couldn't control himself. Chapter 169. From Rue Hui's point of view, the conditions she proposed to Ryuto were extremely generous. Letting Ryuto enter the Komiyoshi clan as Li Lan to assist Colored Glaze was actually a tacit consent for the two to date. With Rue Hui's tacit consent, Ryuto and Colored Glaze could do whatever they wanted as long as they didn't break the last layer of window paper. It could be said to be quite free. And Rue Hui would also help Ryuto's Rulong Group and Rulong Security Company in all aspects to help these companies quickly grow to industry leaders and even international leaders. As for Dragon Fight, all he needed to do was provide support for a year. That was all. In the year after Rue Hui's death, Ryuto needed to help Colored Glaze stabilize the situation in the Komiyoshi clan. When Colored Glaze became Queen Jai, he could still continue to hold a certain amount of power in the family as Rue Hui's adopted son, which was equivalent to climbing a huge tree. When Colored Glaze retired 20 years later, Ryuto could also immediately marry her and have children with her. After all, the two would be less than 40 years old at that time, and they still had a few decades to enjoy their lives. Such generous conditions were tempting. After all, Ryuto had to pay very little, but the things he received were so much that it made people speechless. But after listening to Rue Hui's words, Ryuto couldn't help but frown as if he was thinking about something else. His hesitation seemed to be interpreted by Rue Hui as other intentions, so Rue Hui continued to ask, "What? Are there any other conditions? As long as it's not too much, I can promise you. Let's not talk about conditions for now, but I just don't feel good." "What? Not good? What else do you want?" After hearing Ryuto's seemingly insatiable words, Rue Hui couldn't help but frown as if she wanted to advise this young man not to be too greedy. After all, greed was a knife to the head, and it was a hero to be able to endure it. However, Ryuto's next sentence greatly exceeded Rue Hui's expectations. He raised his head and looked at the beautiful woman sitting beside him. He said in a very unhappy tone, "You're still alive, aren't you? Why must everything be based on the premise that you're definitely going to die? Forgive me for not being able to accept a deal based on this premise." Indeed, in the process of this game, Rue Hui would definitely die. This was her fate. But to the current Long Do, fate and whatnot was simply *T in his eyes. After all, if this story progressed according to the normal trajectory of fate, Ryuto's corpse should have been eaten by the fishes in Tokyo Bay by now. How could he still be alive to sit here and chat with someone? So when he saw Rue Hui calmly discussing with him what would happen after she died, Ryuto felt very unhappy. He felt that if he agreed, he would be obeying the arrangement of fate. And after dying so many times, Ryuto also understood a simple principle: fate could be changed, with the help of money. Since Ryuto could change his own fate with the help of money, why couldn't he change Rue Hui's fate? There were so many things in the Krypton shopping center, but none of them could save Rue Hui's life. Ryuto didn't believe it. The heavens wanted Rue Hui Komashiro to die 1 year later, but the heavens didn't necessarily mean it. You'd have to ask if he, Ryuto Kiryu, agreed. My life is in my hands, not the heavens. The lives of others are also in my hands, not the heavens. The fate of this world is in my hands, not the heavens. This was Ryuto's current attitude towards life. That was why Ryuto asked Rue Hui not to think with the premise that, I'm definitely going to die. Only then could they continue the discussion. Otherwise, there would be no point in continuing the discussion. After understanding Ryuto's attitude, Rue Hui widened her eyes in shock for the first time in front of him. What is this child talking about? Does he not understand what I'm saying? My illness can't be cured. Rue Hui couldn't be more clear about her own body's condition. After all, she had a heart disease inherited from the Kamiyoshi clan. This disease couldn't be cured by modern medical technology. Most of Rue Hui's ancestors, such as her mother and grandmother, died of this strange disease. The age of death was also around this time. From a certain point of view, this strange disease wasn't completely without benefits. This was because people with this genetic disease also aged much slower than normal people. This caused Rue Hui to look like she was in her early 30s even though she was over 50 years old. Even at the time of death, she still looked very young. But a disease was a disease. In order to prevent her descendants from being infected by this strange disease, Rue Hui didn't follow her family's wishes after she stepped down from her position as the king. Instead, she quietly relied on modern technology to complete the task of carrying on her ancestral line. She found the most advanced research institute in IVF research. After a detailed analysis of her illness, she completed artificial insemination and embryo transfer surgery. In the end, she finally gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She did IVF not only because she didn't want to find a man, but also because Rue Hui knew that the most advanced IVF technology could prevent the continuation of some families' genetic diseases. In fact, from the situation of Colored Glaze's birth until now, she didn't inherit Rue Hui's heart disease and could grow up healthily and happily. But Colored Glaze was Colored Glaze, and Rue Hui was Rue Hui. Rue Hui had already accepted her fate. She had already prevented her daughter from going down the same path as her in the future. She planned to make enough arrangements so that her daughter could smoothly succeed the throne after her death and become the next king and Kamiyoshi clan lord. However, when Rue Hui thought that she had arranged everything and could wait for her death, the young man in front of her seemed to completely disdain her arrangements and didn't even allow her to die. This strange attitude made Rue Hui dumbfounded for a moment, but she couldn't help but feel a trace of warmth and apology in her heart. Rue Hui hadn't told anyone about her terminal illness. The reason why she told Ryuto the truth was that she wanted to take advantage of his sympathy. You see, I'm about to die. A dying man's words are kind, so shouldn't you agree to this deal and help me protect Colored Glaze? Everything was a scheme, everything was a part of the deal, even her own death was part of the scheme. This should have been Rue Hui's personality. But when she saw Ryuto's unsatisfied attitude towards her and decisively rejected the deal, she suddenly felt that she was a bit too much. She actually came to scheme against a hot-blooded young man who was angry about her death. After sighing, Rue Hui could only continue to bite the bullet and say, Ryuto, actually, da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. Just as Rue Hui wanted to continue persuading Ryuto to stop him from thinking about such nonsense, a series of hurried footsteps rushed in from outside. The footsteps sounded light, but the sound of each step was extremely irritated. It was obvious that the owner wasn't in a good mood. So, Ryuto and Rue Hui both looked in that direction at the same time. They saw the female lead of their discussion, Colored Glaze Kanzaki, rushing over with a pair of large dark circles under her eyes. She didn't seem to be in a good condition. In fact, it could even be said that she was in a terrible state. Her hair, which should have been neatly combed, had a few lively strands of hair sticking up. Her face looked tired, but it also contained some resentment, anger, and annoyance. Let alone Ryuto, even Rue Hui had never seen Colored Glaze in such a state before. When Colored Glaze saw the two people sitting in the waiting area, she quickly ran over and said while panting, "Mother, huff, 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 mother. Mother, this was all my idea. Please don't blame this idiot too much." When she said the word idiot, Colored Glaze couldn't help but glare at Ryuto, as if warning him not to speak nonsense. Because of the sticky Dunya incident yesterday, Colored Glaze was so angry that she threw away her phone and left. She also swore that she would cut off all ties with Ryuto and would no longer care about anything related to him. However, after lying in bed and angrily scolding Ryuto for a few hours, Colored Glaze realized that the truth might not be what she heard before. After all, although Ryuto was an old pervert, he wouldn't mess around with Dunya when he was being chased by a large group of people. He wasn't that thirsty. From this point of view, it wasn't difficult for Colored Glaze to think that there was a large probability that there was a misunderstanding. Anyway, it wasn't the first time. Ryuto was a professional at misunderstanding. Wherever he went, there would be misunderstandings. When Lu Li finally realized what was going on, it was already past 8 o'clock. And when Colored Glaze learned that her mother went to the Kansai First Hospital to look for Ryuto, she immediately rushed over. She wanted to say a few good words in front of her mother to help this idiot get away with something. However, what Colored Glaze didn't expect was that her mother didn't intend to punish Ryuto at all. She even planned to entrust her to him. My mother is really ridiculous. But no matter what, Colored Glaze was obviously still very concerned about Ryuto. Seeing her rushing over, she was obviously worried that Ryuto would be torn apart by her own mother on the spot. So after seeing Colored Glaze running over so nervously, Rue Hui showed a subtle expression, and the corner of her mouth raised into a seductive arc. "Don't worry, I don't mean to blame Ryuto. In short, let's go in and see President Wu Hong's situation first." After standing up, Rue Hui smiled and nodded at Rue Hui. Then she waved her hand and called Dunya, who was not far away, over. She then led everyone to the hospital ward. While walking, the Kamiyoshi leader asked in a relaxed tone as if she was chatting with a friend, "Ryuto, it seems like today isn't very convenient. How about we continue the conversation next time? If you're free, I'll accompany you any time. By the way, do you like Chinese cuisine or French cuisine? Next time, let's chat while we eat. Chinese cuisine, I'm not used to French cuisine, although I haven't eaten it yet." Pfft, you're so funny, like you're joking. Just like that, Rue Hui and Ryuto chatted while walking side by side to the ward area, while Dunya followed behind in fear, not even daring to breathe. As for Colored Glaze, who was left behind and ignored, she was dumbfounded. After all, she had never seen her mother chatting so happily with others. This made Colored Glaze feel like she was the outsider. "Mother, you guys are chatting, how can I leave?" While walking towards the ward, Colored Glaze couldn't help but have such thoughts in her mind. Chapter 170. Just as Rue Hui entered the ward, President Wu Hong, who was lying on the hospital bed, was secretly drinking bottles of vodka that the nurses wouldn't allow him to drink no matter what. Then, when the group of people pushed the door open, he was so frightened that he spilled the vodka on the bed. Although he was greatly afraid of Rue Hui who suddenly barged in, President Wu Hong still jumped up excitedly when he saw his precious daughter. "Dong! Dunya! That's great, you're really still alive." Crack! His burly figure jumped up from the bed, and the bandage wrapped around his chest cracked open on the spot, and a large amount of blood seeped out from it. "Dad, you're actually secretly drinking vodka. Moreover, it was under the condition of being seriously injured. Do you want to die?" Originally, Dunya wanted to give her dad a hug when she came in, but when she saw the bottle in his hand, she was so angry that she wanted to hit him on the head with the bottle. Colored Glaze should be very experienced in hitting people on the head with a bottle, but at this moment, she didn't have the energy to care about the stupid father and daughter. After all, Colored Glaze's little head was still thinking about when her mother became so close to Ryuto. "What happened when I wasn't here? Why is Ryuto so close to mother? Am I not awake yet? Am I actually in a dream? Colored Glaze was in a daze as she secretly reached out to pinch the hard thigh beside her. After pinching for a while, she realized that Ryuto was looking at her with a puzzled gaze. Colored Glaze? Why are you pinching my thigh? Although it didn't hurt to pinch Colored Glaze's cold and smooth hands, Ryuto still felt that it was a little strange. Moreover, Rue Hui was on the other side. If you want to pinch, find a place where there's no one around and slowly pinch. Why must you pinch in front of mother-in-law? I'm so sorry. When Ryuto gave her a question mark, Colored Glaze's face flushed red. She quickly turned her face to look at the other side, as if she suddenly had a strong interest in the hospital's white ward wall. However, at this moment, Dancing Costume also brought the rescued Hitoshi Kazuma to the ward. After seeing his biological father who just slipped out of prison, Ryuto coolly greeted Kazuma and smiled. Yo, Dad, you're out? The air outside is good, right? It's okay, you've worked hard during this time. When Kazuma saw his son, he walked up to him and patted him on the shoulder, and said with a slightly heavy tone. Originally, Kazuma wanted his son to stay away from extreme Dao, but he didn't expect that his son seemed to be getting better and better at it. He even found someone to rescue him from prison. The younger generation was truly formidable, and he had a talent for doing evil. Suddenly, Wu Hong, who was being chased around by Dunya to steal bottles of wine, took the opportunity to run in front of Kazuma. He grabbed his hand and shook it crazily while laughing. Isn't this Kazuma? Long time no see. It's great to see you alive and kicking. I'm alive and kicking, but you seem to have some problems. When he heard President Wu Hong's rough greeting, Ima looked at the bandages on his chest that were bleeding profusely. He hurriedly helped him back to the bed so that he wouldn't bleed to death. We haven't seen each other for many years, right? We haven't seen each other since the big fight with the drug lords in Siberia more than 10 years ago. Siberia. At that time you killed 70 or 80 people. No, not as much as you, not as much as you. You killed so many people that their blood flowed like a river. When people in that area heard your name, they would be scared witless. Not sure if it was to avoid Dunya's pursuit, or if it was because he was really interested in it. Wu Hong and Kazuma began to talk about their old stories in high spirits, and they also picked up the vodka in their hands and gulped it down. On the hospital bed, drinking vodka and bragging with a seriously injured patient whose chest was bleeding due to the torn bandage was something that only these two strong men with nerves as thick as steel could do. But while Kazuma chatted with Wu Hong, he explained what happened before, such as why Ryuto wanted to kidnap Dunya, and what the Heavenly Eye group did behind the scenes, etc. Too much. Those guys dared to do this kind of thing. Boom. After listening to Kazuma's explanation, Wu Hong couldn't help but punch the bed in anger. Wu Hong was indeed a powerful martial artist. This punch directly split the hospital bed from the middle, and then he was trapped in it, and then he was supported by Kazuma and Dunya in a hurry to climb out. Suddenly, Rue Hui also said to him, President Wu Hong, you already know the whole story of this incident. Now you can go to the Sai 2 Guild Hall to explain the ins and outs, and ask them to stop the pursuit of Ryuto. That's a matter of course. I'll make a call to explain the situation to the elders. By the way, Sai 2 Takamotori committed suicide an hour ago, so you don't have to call his phone, you can't get through anyway. What? When he heard Rue Hui's words, Wu Hong couldn't help but widen his eyes. The chairman elder of the Sai 2 Guild Hall, Sai 2 Takamotori, he was a senior member in the guild hall. Why did he suddenly commit suicide for fear of punishment? Long Do added, from the situation we encountered yesterday, that guy should have hooked up with the Heavenly Eye group a long time ago. Including the assassination attempt on you this time, it was also his doing inside. Humph, that smelly old man even wanted the bodyguards to shoot me and Ryuto. He actually committed suicide just like that. It was really too easy for him. If he was still alive, I would have broken his neck with my own hands. When she thought of the horrible scene where she was almost shot with a gun yesterday, Dunya clenched her fists angrily. Speaking of this, Her body actually exuded a strong murderous aura, which even scared Wu Hong and Kazuma. Both of them were veterans in the martial arts world. Naturally, they knew that the strong murderous aura on Dong Nia meant that she had taken at least several lives. Otherwise, she wouldn't have given them such a cold feeling. Sigh. Forget it, this was something that couldn't be helped. Originally, Wu Hong didn't want Dunia to step into this bloody and cruel Jianghu society. After all, she was a girl. What was the point of shouting and shouting all day long? Therefore, Wu Hong didn't even teach Dunia martial arts seriously. He only taught her some basic self-defense skills, which were enough to deal with some gangsters. Obviously, yesterday's incident had already dragged her into it. Now it was not a matter of whether Wu Hong was willing or not, but she was already in it. As long as you stepped into this bloody world, there was no chance to leave in this life. Wu Hong had a deep understanding of this, so his face was somewhat ugly. She seemed to understand what Wu Hong was thinking about with a bitter face. She tried to persuade him, "Don't think about it too much. Children and grandchildren have their own blessings, just like my son. I didn't want him to walk this path in the beginning, but his talent is there, so this is his fate. Life is like this." Wait, Kazuma. Do you remember something that we talked about when we were drinking? It was related to them. Suddenly, Wu Hong looked at Kazuma's face, then looked at his son Ryuto and his daughter Dunia, as if he remembered something. What is it? Is it related to Ryuto and Dunia? Didn't we say that if we have children in the future, if they are all boys, they will be brothers, if they are all girls, they will be sisters, a man and a woman will be husband and wife? Puff. Hearing her father's careless words, not caring that there was a truck full of people in the ward, Dunia couldn't help but spit out the vodka that she secretly drank, spraying it all over Ryuto's face. Loli. Spray. JPG. For some people with special fetishes, being sprayed by a beautiful loli may be a pleasure, but Ryuto obviously wasn't. Especially when the vodka that was sprayed on his face was extremely high alcohol content, it was literally an eyesore. But Ryuto didn't have time to care about the alcohol on his face. He immediately looked at Kazuma with a strange expression. He wanted to know how his old man would respond. After all, if Ryuto didn't misunderstand, Wu Hong's words were the ancient, prenatal marriage. He should have been very close with Kazuma in the past, to the point that they went to Siberia to deal with drug dealers, so when they suddenly talked about this topic, they made such an agreement. The children of the two would be brothers if they were boys, sisters if they were girls, and a man and a woman would be husband and wife. Now that Ryuto and Dunia were a boy and a girl, didn't that mean they suddenly became a prenatal marriage couple? However, under Long Do's dumbstruck gaze, Ima also indifferently replied, "Ah, there seems to be such a thing. This matter is true." Pa. Old man. That's just a joke, right? The two of you probably won't make me and Dunia. What are you saying? Just as Long Do was about to laugh it off, Wu Hong raised his eyebrows and said in a stern tone, "A real man will keep his word and dismember his corpse. How can you treat it as a joke? Son-in-law." No, it's a promise that cannot be taken back. What is a promise that can't be dismembered? Who else is your son-in-law? Ryuto instantly panicked when he saw that these two old friends of his were really going to arrange a marriage between him and Dunia with just a few words. It wasn't that he didn't want to be close to Dunia, but that the Kanzaki mother and daughter were watching. Dunia couldn't help but blush when she heard about this. She picked up the vodka in her hand and gulped it down in an attempt to cover up her embarrassment. Colored Glaze, on the other hand, looked at Ryuto with an icy gaze that seemed to say, "Breaking all ties." This made Ryuto think that he had done something that would make him a sinner for all eternity. Of course, no matter how icy Colored Glaze's gaze was, it wasn't as terrifying as Rue Huey's smile. Rue Huey's smile was fake, but her eyes weren't smiling. However, she wasn't looking at Ryuto. Instead, she was looking at Dunia. It seemed like she was thinking about how to toss this bare loli to Siberia to plant potatoes. But no matter what, after this farce ended, the kidnapping incident, that had lasted for several days, finally came to an end. From tomorrow onwards, Ryuto would be able to return to his daily life. Let's hope that was the case. Chapter 171. What was a daily routine? Everyone had a different definition of a daily routine. Some people's daily routine was to train in school and study every day. Some people's daily necessities were like rice, oil, and salt. In order to support their families, they had to run around everywhere. Some people's daily routine was to fight and kill and would rot in the gutters at any time. For Ryuto, the so-called daily routine was, he didn't have a daily routine. It was early in the morning a week after the Dunya kidnapping incident. Early in the morning, before he went to school, Long Do went to the training ground he had prepared at home as usual. There, he met a burly man. "You're here." The man didn't even turn his head and said with his back facing him, "Sorry, I shouldn't have come." Ryuto frowned when he saw the man. He took a step back and looked like he was going to run away at any time. The man didn't turn his head, but he seemed to have sensed Ryuto's intention. So he continued, "You can't run away. Remember, I'm your father. Don't you feel like you're cursing me? If others say it, then it's cursing. If I say it, then it's not cursing because it's the truth." The man turned his head and stared at Ryuto with a pair of sharp eyes. But it was true. In this world, the only person who could use the words, "I'm your father," to talk to Ryuto was the current boss of the Rulon Group, Hitoshi Kazuma. After the prison break a week ago, Kazuma was temporarily free and returned to the Rulon Group headquarters. From this perspective, Ryuto should be the final winner. As for the loser, it was naturally the Heavenly Eye Group, or rather the Secret Department Deputy Head Misty Ghost. After all, on the morning of the 1 billion bounty incident, the police found Misty Ghost's body in the detention room where Kazuma was. It was said that when the fog ghost was discovered, it had died in a very miserable state. It was as if someone had used an exhaust pipe to inject poison into its body. And the cause of his death wasn't even poison. Instead, his internal organs were blown up by poisonous gas while he was still alive. However, no matter how horrible the fog ghost's death was, Ima, who escaped from prison, was still a criminal. Furthermore, this time, he had escaped from prison, which made his crimes even worse. At that time, when the warden of the Nest Duck prison discovered that Ima had escaped, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood on the spot. He swore that he would arrest this man and bring him to justice. Therefore, the headquarters of the Dragon Group had been searched several times, but because Ima was hiding in the secret room, the police could not find him no matter how hard they tried. However, Ima was now on the wanted list. He belonged to the category of extremely evil and wanted criminals. If he was caught again, he would not be able to come out for the rest of his life. Therefore, after the discussion between Ryuto and Rue Hue, they decided to let Ima go abroad for the time being. After a period of time, he would change his appearance and return to Tokyo with a new identity. In this way, Ima would soon take a plane to a foreign country. He would temporarily leave this noisy big city and go outside to cultivate. However, before this, Ima had something that he had to do as a father no matter what. Early in the morning, Ima caught his son who was about to come out to practice martial arts. He asked seriously, "You hid for so long because you didn't want me to see your last mock exam paper. Did you do badly?" That's right, Ima caught Ryuto early in the morning to see how his recent academic results were. Although Ryuto was a powerful young master, and not long ago, he became a wanted criminal in the $1 billion underground world and a kidnapper who appeared on TV, this still didn't change his identity as a glorious high school student. Since he was a high school student, he naturally had to put in enough effort in his studies. And the result of his hard work was his exam results. However, when Ima asked about his exam results, Ryuto didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How should he describe it? Ever since Ryuto came to this world, he didn't do anything that a high school student should do. Now that he was suddenly being chased by his father to see his exam paper, this kind of ordinary daily life made Ryuto feel that it was very abnormal, and even a little magical. It was like a hot-blooded youth manga that was filled with fighting, conspiracies, and adventures. After the protagonists fought 300 rounds with the evil organization, blood flowed like a river. They turned around and began to discuss which subject to take the next day's exam. Ryuto Kiryu, killed a few hundred people a week ago, dealt with the top assassins of the underground world, and was even blown up into the sky by a rocket. In the end, I rescued my father, who was the leader of the underground world, from prison. But after only a week, my dad was already clamoring to see my exam results. This overly strange scene was very hard to accept. It was like a fantastic novel written by Yun Yen, but it was indeed reality. Facing Ima's serious expression, Ryuto could only bitterly smile and say, "That. Can I not look at it? You are going to leave soon. Can't you leave with a happy mood? If I know that you didn't put in any effort in your studies, how can I leave with a happy mood?" "No, Dad, we are in extreme Tao." "Extreme Tao? Isn't it enough to know how to write your own name?" Ridiculous. If a hooligan doesn't study, he will forever be a hooligan, never able to make a name for himself. Then have you studied? Don't change the topic, we are talking about you. Quickly take out the exam results from last time. Ima was stunned for a moment, then quickly changed the topic, and looked at Ryuto with a, "I am your father," look. Seeing that the group leader was so serious, Ryuto could only bitterly smile and take out the exam results from last time from the drawer in his room. When Ima saw the results, he thought that there was something wrong with his eyes. Are these results serious? Why are all the scores in single digits? That, cough cough, actually the high school exam results have changed to a full score system. Do you think I am an idiot? And even if it was a full score of 10, you still didn't pass a single subject. After angrily staring at Ryuto, Ima began to carefully examine the test paper in his hand. Modern Mandarin, 3 points. Modern Society, 5 points. Mathematics, 4 points. Basic Physics, 1 point. Basic Chemistry, 0 points. When he saw the last 0 points, Tong Shang Ima, this middle-aged man who had spent half his life in a rain of bullets and a rain of blood, finally had his defense broken. I spent so much effort to send you to Kuri First High. You are really worthy of me. He, thanks for the compliment. I am not complimenting you. How can you be so shameless? If there was something that made Ima even angrier, it was that Ryuto did not seem to care about it at all. Of course, Ryuto really did not care about it. Although he was a high school student, he definitely did not care about the subjects in school. What a joke. I am the ultimate combination of a transmigrator and a high school student. I am here to save the world, or destroy the world. Okay. How could he just stay at a certain place and study? This is too much of a waste of talent. But although Ryuto thought this way, Ima obviously did not think so. Looking at his smiling son, Ima could not help but angrily say, "Listen. If you don't pass the next exam, I will kick you out of Rulong Group." What? Are you threatening me? So what if I threaten you? I, Ryuto Kiryu, am amenable to coaxing but not coercion. If you are tougher than me, I will. You will. I will. I will accept your threat. Why are you shouting so loudly? After showing an attitude of superiority, Ryuto followed the attitude of a spiritual Frenchman, and chose to surrender. He promised Ima that he would pass the next exam. However, Ryuto usually slept in class and did not even open a book after studying for so long. Of course, he could not pass the exam based on his own ability. Therefore, Ryuto found his life coach at noon that day. Dora-colored glaze, the exam is in 5 days. Quickly think of a way. What the hell is Dora-colored glaze? I don't eat dorayaki. After being asked by Ryuto, the colored glaze who was elegantly eating on the garden cushion suddenly had a drop of cold sweat on her forehead. But she still raised her head and said in a cold tone, "Why don't you ask your cute fiancé for this kind of thing?" Ever since she found out Ryuto and Dunya had an arranged marriage a week ago, the colored glaze's attitude towards him was very cold. Although Ryuto still diligently came to eat with the colored glaze's tantrum was not something that could be resolved in a short period of time. It could be said that it was quite awkward. But when he heard the colored glaze's retort, Ryuto shamelessly replied, "I actually asked Dunya if she could help me with my studies. And then I realized that she is in her first year of high school and I am in my second year. She hasn't learned what I am learning. How can she help me?" Speaking up to here, Long Do spread out his hands and put on a helpless expression. Dunia usually looked silly, but surprisingly, her academic performance was not bad. She was one of the top students in her first year. After all, after coming to Tokyo, she studied at the White Lotus Female Academy, which was a completely closed-off school. Usually, there was nothing to do except study. It would be strange if her grades were not good. But the problem was that no matter how good Dunia's grades were, it could not change the fact that she was in her first year and Ryuto was in his second year. Therefore, the only people who could help Ryuto were the colored glaze and Yunyen. He grabbed onto the colored glaze and madly begged. In the end, under Ryuto's repeated pleas, the colored glaze finally softened. Since you've begged me to this extent, it's not like I can't teach you. Okay. Don't be in a hurry. In short, let's see how your foundation is. If it's too bad, I can't help. Oh, this is my last exam paper, please take a look. In fact, Colored Glaze was quite confident in teaching others. After all, she was very smart. If she really wanted to teach, she could achieve a better result than a teacher. However, after looking at the Dragon Duel test paper, Lioli regretted it. Because she couldn't imagine that this was something that could be written by a human. Even a dog would score better than this if it was scratched a few times. Chapter 172. As a young master, the previous Ryuto didn't study much since he was young. He couldn't even recognize all 28 English letters. He was only one step away from being illiterate. Although his soul was transmigrated, the Ryuto after transmigrating was even less interested in high school level studies. After all, he knew that in 2 years this broken island would sink. Who would care about how many points he got on the exam? He could just deal with it. However, the colored glaze obviously didn't know about Ryuto's situation, so she didn't think this idiot would be this bad. After reading Ryuto's exam, the colored glaze pondered for a long time before carefully asking, "Did you do these exam papers seriously? Or did you just write them casually?" "I forgot. Anyway, I slept most of the time during the exam." "So did you write it seriously?" "I wrote my name seriously. I'm quite confident in writing my name." Suddenly, Ryuto proudly puffed out his chest and put on a dignified and upright posture. For a high school student, I don't think this is much of an honor. How did you get into this school before? Feeling his inexplicable confidence, the colored glaze could only helplessly cover her face. She originally thought that Ryuto was able to get into the Dori First High School because he had done some hard work. Now it seemed like he didn't even have the ability to reach the level of an elementary school student. That year's entrance exam. I think I threatened the person next to me to write the answers. Other than my name, I didn't write anything else. Is the invigilator useless? Why didn't he do anything? It's probably because I've communicated with him beforehand. Communicated? How did you communicate? Did you bribe him? I didn't bribe him. I just told him that if he dared to interfere, he should be careful when walking at night after school to avoid being hacked to death. Of course, that was wrong, but I won't do it again. As expected of a bastard. How did I get so close to this guy? But he seems to be much better now. Hearing this, Colored Glaze carefully looked at Ryuto, who had a strange expression on his face. Although Ryuto had indeed done such a thing before, Colored Glaze felt that he wasn't someone who would do such a thing now. It was as if after the Colored Glaze kidnapping incident, Ryuto had completely changed. In the past, Ryuto was indeed a scumbag who would threaten his deskmate to help him write the test papers. He also threatened the invigilator to not interfere or else he would be hacked to death. However, the current Ryuto was not that kind of person. When he encountered problems during exams, he would only look for someone to help him with his grades. He would not think of those unorthodox methods. However, this was to be expected. After all, the previous Ryuto and the current Ryuto only had the same body, but their souls were two completely different people. The previous Ryuto Kiryu was a scumbag villain, so it was normal for him to do all kinds of hooligan acts. He even thought that the colored glaze was definitely a scumbag who deserved to be thrown out to feed the fish. Therefore, Colored Glaze was actually quite happy with the current extreme Dao young master who did not hesitate to ask her for help instead of choosing to walk the unorthodox path. "All right." At this time, Ryuto suddenly reached out and patted his head. He smiled and said to Colored Glaze, "I can't threaten others to help me write the test papers or threaten the invigilator, but stealing the test papers shouldn't be a problem, right?" In Ryuto's view, threatening normal people was not right. However, stealing the test papers to prepare the answers in advance and copying them during the exam was fine. This was Ryuto, a man with a flexible moral bottom line. "Fine. Let's pretend I didn't think of anything just now." Seeing Ryuto, who suddenly thought of stealing the test papers and laughed heartily, Colored Glaze immediately threw the thought of, "I kind of like him," into the trash can. She looked at him with eyes full of contempt. Of course, Ryuto did not plan to pay attention to Colored Glaze's contempt. After all, in his view, he was only going to steal the test papers and would not hurt anyone. Was there anything that he could not do? Definitely not. What? This kind of action affected the fairness of the exam? Please, saying this to an extreme Dao young master who killed hundreds of people? Would he even care about this? Therefore, Ryuto quietly sneaked into the staff room of Kyoto First High School on the night of the fourth day. For an old fox like him who once sneaked into the heavily guarded Tokyo Emperor Hotel, a mere high school staff room was not much more difficult than his own backyard. He's here with the lockpick. Around midnight, Ryuto wore a black tight suit that he usually wore to rob hooligans. After climbing over the school wall, he swaggered in. Arriving at the door of the staff room that he investigated beforehand, Ryuto took out the hooligan lockpick that he bought from the mall and opened the door. He took 2 steps into the room and locked the door from the inside. The staff room was quiet in the middle of the night. Not a single sound could be heard. Ryuto walked with almost inaudible demonic steps towards the depths of the staff room. He walked towards the safe that was locked with a large pile of unopened test papers. According to Ryuto's investigation, Kyoto First High School was the most famous high school in Tokyo, so the exam supervision here was quite strict. All the test papers were created using a standalone computer that was not connected to the internet. After creating the test papers, they were printed on the spot in their own printing room. After printing, they were stored in the safe. As for the password of the safe, only a few high-level school leaders knew about it. This arrangement naturally minimized the possibility of the test papers being leaked. But for Ryuto, obtaining the password was not a very complicated matter. After all, he had Sensible, who was an omnipotent helper. Through monitoring the phones and computers of the school leaders, Sensible had intercepted the password of the safe yesterday. It seemed that one of the vice principals was afraid that he would forget and recorded it in a memo on his phone. Just like this, Ryuto quietly walked over to the safe. He bent down and was about to twist the password lock to take out the test papers inside. Tap, tap, tap. But at this moment, 2 sets of footsteps came from outside the staff room. Moreover, it was the kind that was coming towards him. I was discovered. No way. Generally speaking, it was unlikely that someone would come to the staff room to work in the middle of the night. So when Ryuto heard the footsteps, he immediately frowned. His whole body slid to the side and hid under the table not far away. Walla, creak. Accompanied by the sound of the key turning and the slight sound of the door being pushed open, the 2 figures, one old and one young, quietly walked in. Because the person walking in front was holding a small lantern, Ryuto, who was hiding in the dark, could clearly see their appearance. The balding middle-aged man walking in front was wearing a suit and had a timid look. Ryuto remembered that he seemed to be the vice principal of Kyoto First High School, because his balding head was quite conspicuous. The young man behind was about the same age as Ryuto. His handsome face was full of arrogance and an overbearing expression. It was obvious that he was not a good person. When the vice principal brought the young man to the place where the safe was placed, he could not help but turn his head and ask, "That, young Master Wada, do you really want to do this?" From his tone, the vice principal seemed to have a lot of respect for the young man behind him. It was obvious that the young Master Wada had an extraordinary background. Nonsense, if I ask you to open it, then open it. Isn't it just a few broken test papers? Just take it out. But if this test paper is leaked out, old man, if I don't get full marks on tomorrow's test and can't use this score to ask for praise from my aunt, guess what will happen to you? When he said the word aunt, the corner of Wada's mouth raised. He reached out and patted the vice principal's bald head. It was as if he did not see him as a person at all. Sigh. There was no other way. Although the vice principal was obviously not willing to help this guy steal the test papers, the situation was better than him. He could only twist the password lock and slowly find the test papers inside. Oh. So they were in the same profession. At this moment, Ryuto knew why this young Master Wada came here. It seemed like he came for the test papers. But it was obvious that his style of doing things was much more arrogant than Ryuto. He actually threatened the vice principal to steal the test papers for him? What kind of situation was this? Little Hatien. Aunt. Could it be that this guy's aunt was some important person? After hearing this name, Long Do quietly picked up his phone, gently typed in this surname on his phone, and began to search for it. In this era of information explosion, if young Master Wada's aunt was really something, then it should not be hard to find her on the phone. Found it. The moment Ryuto typed in the surname Wada, the first person that popped up on the search page was someone related to this young master. The important person in the first row of the Wada surname was called Wada Ye. She was the wife of the 126th emperor, Emperor Wu De. She was the current empress. And this Wada Ye's father, Wada Hang, was the current permanent representative of the United Nations and the chief judge of the International Court of Justice. She also had a nephew called Wada Wada. He should be the one who threatened the vice principal to steal the test papers. So that's why. I was wondering why he was so arrogant. So he is a relative of the emperor. Seeing the vice principal nervously take out the test papers one by one and give them to young Master Wada, Ryuto could not help but sneer. Indeed, young Master Wada's family background could be said to be a real noble family. His family had been in politics for many years and was related to the royal family by marriage. Whether it was background or reputation, they were all very good. But although this guy was arrogant and despotic, as long as he did not provoke Ryuto, he could not be bothered with this kind of person. He simply hid at the side and did not make a sound, silently waiting for these two guys to leave. Who knew that when Wada received the test papers, he could not help but curse, F*** Ryuto Kiryu. If it was not for that scum, I would not have to waste time. Tui. Chapter 173. What? Why did he suddenly bring me along? Originally, Ryuto was still lying on the side, waiting for these two guys to leave before stealing the test papers. However, he did not expect to hear his name from Kawata Tamaki's mouth. What's more, this guy didn't even say anything nice. Instead, he directly scolded him. The most important thing was that Kawata Tamaki's theft of the test papers seemed to have something to do with Ryuto. It was as if Ryuto was not there, he would not have to steal the test papers. What was going on? After hearing this, Ryuto was suddenly puzzled. But he didn't have to think about it anymore, because the young master had very honestly told him the reason why he hated Long Do, and he even brought another person along with him. And that Yun Yen in Tsukujiri as well. She usually doesn't have any reaction to me, but she actually got so close to that delinquent. She's simply a brainless, big-breasted bitch with no eyes. It was as if he didn't feel satisfied after scolding senior sister Yun Yen, so he started scolding her as well. Hearing this, Long Do clenched his fists, but he quickly realized why Konoha and Tanaki were talking so much about this and that. Obviously, Kawata Tamaki should have pursued Yun Yen. After all, Yun Yen was so beautiful and charming. It would be unrealistic if there were not many people in the school who had thoughts about her. However, before meeting Ryuto, Yun Yen maintained a very polite distance from all the boys. She absolutely did not give anyone any chance to get close to her, including Kawata Tamaki, a relative of the emperor. Although Kawata Tamaki was very angry about this, Yunyan's identity and family background were different from ordinary people. Even if he was a relative of the emperor and a political family, he could not do anything to her. He could only pretend to be carefree and forget about this matter. But not long after Kawata Tamaki forgot about this matter, there was a rumor that Yunyan and Ryuto Kiryu were having an affair. Even the scene of them walking into the campus side by side was taken and posted on the internet. It could be said that these were not rumors, but irrefutable evidence. From the photo, even if Yunyan and Ryuto were not in a relationship, they were at least closer than ordinary friends. In other words, Yunyan did not reject this man. After learning about this, Kawatanaki was so angry that he smashed his phone on the spot. Are you kidding me? I'm a member of the royal family, and you don't have any reaction at all. Instead, you're with a hoodlum. Aren't you looking down on me? Am I not as good as Ryuto Kiryu, that stinky dog? As the saying goes, don't worry about scarcity, but worry about inequality. If everyone could not pursue Yunyan, then forget it. There was nothing wrong with being a flower on a high mountain. Just let Yunyan quietly become the goddess in everyone's heart. But the problem was that others could not pursue her, but Ryuto, that stinky hoodlum, could. Didn't this mean that the goddess in Kawata Tamaki's heart had been taken by the blonde? Who would be able to tolerate this? In Kawata Tamaki's view, the Kyoto in Japan was a group of people who were used by politicians like him. They were a group of creatures that could be thrown away after using them. They were creatures on the same level as watchdogs. Now, the young master of the Rulon group actually dared to steal the woman he liked, and he really did. How could he swallow this if he did not kill him? Therefore, Kawata Tamaki found his aunt, the current Empress Kawata Tamaki, and hoped that she could use her connections to deal with the Rulon group. At least, she could throw Ryuto into prison to pick up soap. However, the shrewd and capable aunt helplessly replied, Tamaki, you're not young anymore. You're always thinking about those messy things. How are you going to inherit the family business in the future? Who said that I'm always thinking about your messy things? I don't know how good my grades are. Inheriting the family business will definitely not be a problem. Alright then. When I was in the Dori First High School, I scored full marks in all subjects. If you can reach my level in the next exam, then you can do whatever you want with that hoodlum. Full marks in all subjects? No problem, it's not difficult at all. Therefore, after Kawata Tamaki gave a military order in front of his aunt, he turned around and began to threaten the vice principal to steal the exam papers. After all, he didn't look like someone who usually studied. How could he possibly get full marks in all subjects? Therefore, he could only use some unorthodox means. However, just as Kawata Tamaki was about to leave after stealing the exam papers, a dark figure of justice emerged from behind a table not far away. Little bastard, you're on the wrong path. Looking at the two figures leaving, Ryuto narrowed his eyes and quietly followed them out. If Kawata Tamaki only scolded Ryuto, then it didn't matter how much he scolded. Ryuto didn't care about this little master's attitude. But the problem was that he also scolded Yunyan, which made Ryuto feel very uncomfortable. It's fine if you scold me, but scolding my girlfriend, scolding my future wife? If I don't pull out your tongue and tie it, are you still human? Therefore, just as Kawata Tamaki and the vice principal left the school gate, Ryuto's figure appeared behind them like a ghost. This is a robbery. Hand over all your things. Before Kawata Tamaki could react, a sharp military knife had been placed on his neck, and at the same time, a hoarse voice sounded. It was now midnight, and there were very few pedestrians in the surrounding area. It was the perfect time for a robbery. Robbery! Robbery! Spare my life! After realizing that he was robbed, the vice principal next to him suddenly trembled and shouted at the top of his voice. But Kawata Tamaki didn't panic at all. He took out his wallet and watch, handed them to the vice principal, and said proudly, "Take it, that's all." Money was just a worldly possession. Since he encountered a robbery, he would just give it to him. In any case, this stupid thief would be caught early in the morning, and everything would be taken back without being touched. After all, Kawata Tamaki was a noble member of the royal family and a politician's family. If he was robbed, the police would definitely send a large number of police officers to investigate. How could this stupid thief escape? Therefore, in Kawata Tamaki's view, the guy who dared to rob him was a complete idiot who didn't even know who he provoked. Seeing his calm and arrogant attitude, Ryuto couldn't help but laugh. Bastard, you seem to be very good at giving money. Are you used to being robbed by your father? If you think so, then so be it. But you can't just take out your wallet and watch. The clothes you're wearing look quite valuable. Take them off immediately. Huh? The clothes I'm wearing? No way, this guy even wants clothes. Is he so poor that he's crazy? After hearing this sentence, Kawata Tamaki looked down at the expensive suit on his body, gritted his teeth, and said angrily, "Okay, if you like it, I'll give it to you." As the young master of the royal family, when did Kawata Tamaki suffer like this? But in this case, he could only take off his suit jacket and hand it over with trembling hands. But Ryuto didn't even look at his suit jacket, but continued to sneer. What else? Continue to take it off. Continue to take it off? My shirt is worth a lot? If I say it's worth a lot, then it's worth a lot. Take off your shirt and trousers. Hurry up. You. Damn it. Do you know who you're talking to? Under such pressure, Kawata Tamaki finally couldn't take it anymore. He turned his head and shouted angrily at the masked robber. But Ryuto pretended not to know and asked, "I don't know, who are you?" "Humph, I'm the nephew of the current Empress, Kawata Tamaki, the permanent representative of the United Nations and the Chief Justice of the International Court of Justice. Kawata Tamaki is my grandfather." "Really? Don't scare me, I'm so scared." "Are you scared now? Let me go now, I can..." Slap. Without waiting for Kawata Tamaki to finish his words, Ryuto directly slapped him in the face. Although he didn't use any strength, the strength of his LV4 physique made Kawata Tamaki dumbfounded, and his face quickly swelled up like a pig's head. I was hit. I was hit by a stinky hooligan?" Suddenly, Kawata Tamaki reached out to cover his swollen face and scolded in a hysterical tone, "Bastard! How dare you hit me? I'll kill you all!" Slap. Before he could finish his words, Ryuto slapped him again. After the slap, he sneered, "Bastard, bastard, 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 you're a Brahmin, born noble, right? What are you pretending for, dog? How dare you? I'm the current emperor's. Emperor your head." Slap. Before he finished speaking, another slap came. "My grandfather is the Chief Justice of the International Court of Justice. Chief your head." Slap slap. This time it was 2 slaps, left and right. In short, for every sentence Kawata Tamaki said, Ryuto slapped him. The more he said, the more he slapped him. This exaggerated situation made the bald middle-aged man tremble uncontrollably. He couldn't imagine that there was someone in the world who dared to do such a thing to Master Kawata. He was the nephew of the current empress, and Kawata Tamaki was a political family with extraordinary influence in the country. How could he bear to hit him on the street? However, Long Do didn't care about this. In his opinion, it was already disgusting enough for this group of trash from the old era to survive until today. How dare they act so pretentious in front of him? Don't they know what kind of trash they are? So after dozens of slaps in a row, slowly beating Kawata Tamaki until he almost fainted, Ryuto snorted coldly and put his wallet, watch, and stolen exam papers in his pocket. Before leaving, Ryuto finally pulled Kawata Tamaki's hair and said contemptuously, "Remember, the name of the only emperor of Japan is Uncle Sam. You and this country are just Uncle Sam's dogs. Don't always think so highly of yourself, trash." After saying this, Ryuto casually spat on his face, left him and swaggered away. Under the gaze of the bald man who was scared to the point of peeing, he disappeared into the darkness. Chapter 174. Ryuto didn't care much about the incident of beating up a member of the royal family tonight. Anyway, he already beat him up, and he is a generous person. He has already forgiven Kobatanaki. As long as that guy doesn't appear in front of him again, everyone will just pretend that nothing happened. But the next morning, Rue Hui called Ryuto's mobile phone. Mrs. Rue Hui, what's wrong? Do you want to find someone to drink tea with? But I have an exam today. During this period of time, Rue Hui would sometimes call Long Do to chat or drink tea with him. But after the call was connected, Rue Hui's tone was very serious, and it didn't sound like she was chatting. She asked faintly, last night, Kobatanaki was beaten up by an unknown robber at the gate of your school. This matter has something to do with you, right? Did I make any mistakes? Ryuto was a little surprised by the content of Rue Hui's call. After all, he thought that he did things very cleanly and shouldn't leave any clues. You don't need to make any mistakes. After all, it's hard to think of a second person who can do this kind of thing except for you. When she heard Ryuto's response, the corner of Rue Hui's mouth twitched slightly. Obviously, she was speechless. After Kobatanaki was beaten unconscious yesterday, the bald middle-aged vice principal immediately called an ambulance to send him to the hospital. Naturally, he also immediately informed Kobatanaki's family. Rue Hui, as the leader of the Kamiyoshi clan, and the Kamiyoshi clan and the royal family were distant relatives, naturally, she quickly received the specific information about this matter. After hearing the vice principal's dictation, Rue Hui immediately reacted. Yesterday, the man in black didn't cause trouble for Kobatanaki for money. He just wanted to find trouble with him. After a little investigation, Rue Hui found out that Kobatanaki once pursued Yun Yen, and because of this matter, he was quite resentful of Ryuto Kiryu. In other words, this guy was Ryuto's enemy, and everything made sense. Only a bold guy like Ryuto would dare to slap a relative of the royal family like a dog on this small island. Especially the last sentence, "The name of the only emperor of Japan is Uncle Sam," was repeated by the vice principal, which directly caused the entire royal family to explode. They are now crazily putting pressure on the cabinet office, demanding that the Metropolitan Police Department catch the criminal within a day, so the sirens in Tokyo are especially loud today. Ha ha ha, you managed to break through his defenses? But can they find me? That's unlikely. You did it very cleanly, and it's hard to find the culprit. But it's better if you don't go out in the same outfit as before. After all, Owada won't let it go so easily. Obviously, Rue Hui was on Ryuto's side in this matter. Or rather, she didn't like the royal family and those politicians who didn't know what they were doing. They obviously didn't have any ability, yet they liked to point fingers. It was quite disgusting. Owada-ya, the current Empress Wu-da, I heard that she doesn't seem to be in a good mental state. She was diagnosed with adjustment disorder. In fact, after Ryuto returned home yesterday, he also investigated some information about the royal family, especially Owada-ya's aunt, Owada-ya. The result was very unexpected, because in the eyes of the people, Owada-ya was not a domineering empress, but a pitiful person with a sad color. It was said that the empress didn't want to marry into the royal family at first. It was the current Emperor Wu-da who fell in love with her at first sight at a concert when he was young. He pursued her and forced her to give up her career and enter the royal family. After marrying into the royal family, she also suffered from mental illness because of all kinds of difficult experiences. It sounded like a very pitiful woman. However, when Rue Hui heard Ryuto's words, she snorted disdainfully. She sneered, "Are you kidding me? That woman has mental illness? Do you know what she used to do? If I remember correctly, she was a diplomat?" Yes, that woman was smart since she was young. When she was 18 years old, she was proficient in many foreign languages and was admitted to Harvard University. After she returned, she studied for a master's degree in law and passed the diplomat qualification exam. She was an expert in Japanese-American relations and was once considered the most promising female diplomat in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It was well known that the boundary between diplomat and spy was quite blurred. In Japan, there was no boundary at all. Diplomats were basically trained according to the template of spies. To be called the most promising diplomat in the whole country, Owada-ya's ability was naturally quite outstanding. She was definitely the type that had nothing to do with weak women. So you're saying that, She's faking her illness? To gain sympathy? Not only was her illness faked, but her experience was also faked. You don't think that Emperor Wu De fell in love with her at first sight when he was young, right? As far as I know, when the woman was studying at Harvard University, this matter was already in the process of being arranged. When she said the words, Harvard University, Rue Hui intentionally or unintentionally emphasized her tone, obviously hinting at the power behind it. So that's how it is. This queen was arranged by Uncle Sam to be a dog leash for the royal family. Compared to ordinary Japanese, Ryuto obviously had a more comprehensive understanding of the situation of this country, and it was easier for him to understand all the reasons. In essence, Japan was not a country, but something similar to a colony. And the one who really controlled everything after the separation was Uncle Sam American, the real mastermind behind the scenes. Regarding this, the upper echelons of Japan and the royal family naturally had a clear understanding of it, but at the same time, they often dreamed of getting rid of the master's control. Only domestic dogs could be called dogs. If they were raised freely, they would become wild dogs, and they might bite back. In order to not let their dogs become wild dogs, Uncle Sam naturally would not be soft-hearted. Instead, he would restrict this country in all aspects, trying to make their broken spine never to be reconnected. And Owada Ye, the queen, was one of the dog leashes that restricted the royal family. Behind her stood not only her own family, but also the strongest and most evil country. Therefore, Rue Hui told Ryuto to be careful of this woman, because not only was she not as simple as she looked on the surface, but she was even more vicious than expected. But having said that, the royal family could not retaliate against Ryuto. After all, there was no evidence. But if evidence was really found, then the situation on Ryuto's side would be quite troublesome, and even Rue Hui might not be able to help him solve the problem. In short, you should be careful. Even if someone suspects you, never admit it. Okay, I'm not stupid. Why would I admit this kind of thing? Who knows, even if you do something outrageous, I won't be surprised. After sighing, Rue Hui hung up the phone, and Ryuto went to the Dori First High School, as usual to prepare for today's exam. Because he already got the test paper yesterday, and he found the intellectual in the Rulon group overnight to help him establish a good relationship, Ryuto was quite confident about this exam. However, just after he finished a day of exams and returned to the headquarters, Consultant Fujiki sent him a piece of bad news. Now that Kazuma was on a plane to a foreign country, most of the daily organizational affairs were handed over to Consultant Fujiki. But this time, when Consultant Fujiki came to Ryuto, his face was very ugly. Young master, there is something I must report to you. What is it? The Metropolitan Police Department sent a notice, asking us to assist in providing the physical characteristics and voice information of all young men in the organization. Not one less. What? After hearing this sudden notice, Ryuto couldn't help but frown. Providing the physical characteristics and voice information of all young men, at a glance, it was obvious that they were looking for someone, and they were looking for someone who met certain conditions. This morning, Rue Hui warned that the royal family put pressure on the cabinet office. The Metropolitan Police Department was a working organization under the Cabinet Office, and it was obvious that this matter was related to the Owada incident yesterday. Ryuto didn't expect that the Queen would use various means to dig out the criminal, but he didn't expect them to be so ruthless. From the situation learned by Consultant Fujiki, they didn't ask the Rulon Group to provide the information of the person, but they asked all the Kyoto and various organizations in the Tokyo area to provide similar assistance. In other words, they were now crazy to the point that they planned to dig up the entire Tokyo to dig out the person who did this. If it was just beating up Owada, the royal family shouldn't be so furious. In the end, they should be broken by Ryuto's words. The name of the only emperor of Japan is Uncle Sam. Saying such words to a relative of the royal family was almost like slapping the entire royal family in the face, and it was the kind of slapping that resounded loudly from both sides. Even if they were mascots, they had to be mascots representing a country. The face wasn't something that could be slapped. Except for Uncle Sam. Although there were no clues of the criminal so far, from the judgment of professionals, they should be sure that it was done by the underground society, including the Kyoto. Therefore, the Metropolitan Police Department began to use this extreme method to try to dig out the criminal from the tens of millions of people in Tokyo. But the Metropolitan Police Department knows that this kind of thing is against the rules, right? If we don't give them the information, what can they do? The message from the other side is, if we don't cooperate, they will start to wipe out all kinds of people, guaranteeing that our lives will be more difficult day by day. After hearing Consultant Fujiki's words, Ryuto couldn't help but sneer. What a good Owada Empress, what a good cabinet office, what a good Metropolitan Police Department. If they really started to use all kinds of methods to deal with the Kyoto, there weren't many people who could withstand it. After all, underground organizations couldn't be enemies with a serious state government. State government. If you want to trouble me, then come. I'll play with you guys and see who is the unlucky one in the end. Chapter 175. Suddenly, the corner of Ryuto's mouth slightly raised, and he put on a Return of the Dragon King posture, which seemed very arrogant. Then he said to Consultant Fujiki, "When will the person collecting the information come?" "In about an hour. They will come here one by one to collect samples from the young male members who meet the age." "Very good. I'll go back and prepare." After leaving such a sentence, Ryuto quickly walked to his room. In fact, the matter of Tokyo digging 3 feet into the ground to dig up criminals was somewhat troublesome for Ryuto. Although he was equipped with the rogue voice-changing mask at the time, which could block his appearance and change his voice. But the voice and appearance could be blocked, but the body shape couldn't be changed. In addition, if Rue Hui could find out that Ryuto and Takatanaki had some friction, the Metropolitan Police Department naturally had no reason not to find out. In this case, if Ryuto's body shape was exactly the same as what the vice principal saw, then he would be easily exposed. Of course, the premise was that Ryuto couldn't change his body shape and body shape. Normal people couldn't make themselves fatter, thinner, taller, or shorter in a day or two. But Ryuto was different. He didn't belong to the category of normal people at all. He was a dignified pay-to-win player. So after returning to his room, Ryuto opened the system that he hadn't touched for a long time, and wanted to see if there were any similar items in the shop. During this time, Ryuto was basically earning money, earning money, earning money. Not to mention that he often went out in the middle of the night to rob punks. During this period, he also played 2 B-level matches in the Sai River fighting arena. After winning a B-level match, he could get a prize of 30 million. Ryuto played 2 matches, and he got 60 million just like that. If it wasn't for the fact that B-level and above matches needed time to arrange and couldn't be played every day, Ryuto wanted to buy a house there and earn money every day. After playing for a year and a half, all his attributes would have been maxed out. In addition to the money mentioned by the Sai River fighting arena, the first batch of dividends from the Rulong Security Company had also arrived. In the past month, the Rulong Security Company had accepted more than 10 security missions and earned more than 80 million yuan. More and more people were lining up to ask for money. Of course, the main reason for this situation was that several other relatively large security companies in Tokyo had already collapsed. Under the joint plotting of Ryuto, Sensible, and Gao Yuan, they had messed up several missions, and their reputation was tarnished. Anyway, the security company industry was a competition of lousy. The newly established Rulong Security Company didn't look that bad, so it became the first company that many bosses considered. From this, Ryuto received more than 20 million in cash. Although it wasn't much, considering that this was only the first month's performance, it was already quite good. Including the money from fighting the hooligans and some assets that he had left behind, Ryuto's current capital pool had reached the level of 120 million. 120 million, what kind of concept was that? It was a large sum of money enough for Ryuto to buy 120 jobs. It was a large sum of money enough for Ryuto to upgrade his stats twice. It was a large sum of money enough for Ryuto to buy things in the shop. However, Ryuto didn't plan to spend all of this money at once. He wanted to save as much as he could and not use it as much as possible. He didn't save so much money to collect interest, but to save a person. To save a person who had helped him a lot, Ruehue Komashiro. In order to prevent Ruehui from dying due to illness like in the original timeline, Ryudo has changed his short-term mission to save this kamikaze family head. But saving Ruehue wasn't easy, because her terminal illness wasn't an injury, but an illness. After refreshing the shop, Ryuto also tried to spend 10 million to buy a hooligan first aid pill for Ruehue, but it didn't have any effect. After all, the second time he bought the pill, which was twice as expensive, it only said, "can cure most injuries," and didn't say, "can cure most injuries." Injuries and illnesses were different. Even if a scion could recover quickly from an injury, they could still die of a heart attack. However, there was indeed something in the shop that could cure injuries, and it was called Hooligan 100 Immortal Pill. The description of this immortal pill was, with one pill, all illnesses will disappear, skin will become supple, and you will become a new person. It felt like after eating it, one could become an immortal, cleansing one's marrow and forging one's bones on the spot. However, the price of such a useful item was also quite reasonable. The first pill cost 1 billion. In fact, from an objective point of view, 1 billion to achieve the effect of becoming a new person was really worth it. The price was ridiculously high. Unfortunately, Ryuto couldn't take out that much money. Ruehue could take out 1 billion, but Ryuto couldn't ask her in advance. After all, if he directly told her, "You give me 1 billion, I can cure your terminal illness," it would feel like a swindler swindling money. No one in their right mind would believe it. Therefore, Ryuto planned to first take out 1 billion to buy the medicine for Ruehue to eat, and after her terminal illness was cured, he would let her compensate him with 1 billion. At that time, Ruehue knew that Ryuto wasn't joking, and would certainly compensate him with such a large sum of money. Maybe there would be more returns, hee. However, even if it wasn't the time to spend extravagantly, Ryuto still had to take out some money to deal with this situation. Beep beep beep. Beep beep beep. Just as Ryuto was lying on the bed in his room looking at the shop, thinking about what to buy, Sensible's phone suddenly rang. "Hello, Sensible, what's wrong?" "Boss, the Metropolitan Police Department is investigating all the Kyoto and similar organizations in Tokyo. They are looking for a criminal with great fanfare. You should know about this." "I know, in less than an hour, they will come to me to collect information. Do you have any suggestions?" "As far as I know, the one responsible for the Rulon Group is the Search Section 1 Chief Toku Shimarinka. She is a ruthless character, it's better not to provoke her." Since he knew that the chief of the Search Section 1 was collecting information on the Rulon Group, Sensible had already thought of the trouble that might arise on Ryuto's side. Search Section 1 First Division, this department had a pivotal position in the entire Metropolitan Police Department system. They were in charge of murder, robbery, assault, sexual crimes, and the worst criminal cases. Only the officers from the search department could wear a gold-framed red circular badge with the words S1 SMPD on the collar of their suits, which represented the difference between them and the other departments. It was no exaggeration to say that this was the most elite police force in Tokyo, second only to the special forces and other unconventional armed forces that dealt with various large-scale incidents. And the section chief who led this batch of police force, with the title of Ghost of the Investigation Department, Toku Shimarin Hana, was the elite of the elite. He had made many outstanding achievements, and in his 30s, he was promoted to the police inspector, which could be said to be an exaggeration of the super-high position. After receiving Sensible's reminder, Ryuto first frowned, then nodded and said, "Toku Shimarinka. It's her, I know. Boss, it's good that you know. Try to have a good attitude towards her. Don't go against her, otherwise it will be difficult to clean up. That woman is really difficult to deal with. Indeed, her brain is indeed a bit dirty. Then that's it, I still have something to do, I'll hang up first." After hanging up the phone, Ryuto's mind appeared a woman with short hair, a beautiful appearance, and a strong figure, but the way she did things was quite scary. Search Section 1 Chief, Toku Shimarinka. In the game Red Album 2, No Survivors, she was a big character with a lot of scenes, and she was also the head of the Tenmu Conglomerate. God Department. That's right, Tokushima Rinka was the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department on one hand, and the head of the Tenmu conglomerate. Guard Department on the other hand, she had two identities, and the former identity was to serve the latter identity. In other words, this guy was IAM's subordinate, a nail that IAM inserted into the Metropolitan Police Department. Similar nails could be found everywhere in the government of Tokyo. After all, IAM had already penetrated the official system in these years, and there were people everywhere. Although Tokushima Rinka's position wasn't the highest among them, she was the most useful. After all, she was the chief of the Search Section 1. As the saying goes, it's better to be in charge than to be in charge of a county. Rinka could really be in charge of a lot of places. It could be said that she provided a huge help to IAM in turning the country upside down in the later stage. It's just that Ryuto didn't think that he would be able to meet Tokushima Rinka so early. But since she came to find him, he had to think of a way to deal with her. Tokushima Rinka. Wait, if I remember correctly, this woman seems to be a love-struck idiot? And she's also a masochist? Thinking about it, Ryuto suddenly thought of some descriptions of the woman in the game. Rinka was beautiful, dignified, determined, and impartial. She often had a straight face and was very difficult to get close to. She was an excellent police officer who could shoulder the title of chief. But if she was really as serious as she looked on the surface, she couldn't be a spy sent by IAM, that lunatic. So under the surface of the iceberg, the real Rinka was a love-struck idiot who had no resistance to handsome men, and she had a strong masochistic hobby. If the other party was a handsome man, her attitude would be much better. Otherwise, it was as bad as it could be. It was so bad that you would wonder whether she was a police officer or a hooligan. There's a way. Although it was a bit of a loss, the money that should be spent still needs to be spent, and the advantages that should be taken advantage of still need to be taken advantage of. Sigh. After sighing, I, Ryuto Kiryu, am actually reduced to selling my body. Ryuto happily pressed the LV3 charm upgrade button. At the same time, he also asked the servant to help find the most handsome set of clothes, and called the best hairstylist nearby, ready to fight an earth-shattering battle of beauty in a while. Chapter 176. When it was close to 7 or 8 o'clock, a few different cars drove onto the street where the Rulon Group headquarters was located. Anyone who knew a little bit about the industry would know that this kind of car was the Metropolitan Police Department or the Search Department. As long as this kind of car appeared, it would inevitably be accompanied by some major case, and it would cause a storm in the city. Screech. Accompanied by a burst of braking sound, the car stopped outside the Rulon Group headquarters. The police officer who accompanied the first car quickly walked to the back and opened the back seat. A long leg wearing flesh-colored stockings and high heels stepped out. Because of her position as the section chief, Teshima and Hana didn't need to wear the police uniform all the time, but wore a dark gray tight professional suit. Under the short and narrow skirt, two slender and well-proportioned legs wrapped in flesh-colored stockings were exposed. The pointed black high heels and neat short hair made the female section chief look quite capable, and her aura was also very strong. However, even if she wore such a professional and serious outfit, it still couldn't hide Teshima and Hana's outstanding appearance. She was indeed very beautiful. There was not the slightest flaw in her delicate and pretty facial features. Her pretty face without makeup looked quite clean. Her slender eyes gave people a cold feeling. She was obviously an ice beauty. Capable, elegant, serious, trustworthy, different from those women who used fancy clothes and makeup to dress themselves up like butterflies. Hana could be said to be the perfect representative of the word professional woman. Or, from the outside, she was such a person. As for the inside, it was better not to delve into it. After getting out of the car, Hana lit a cigarette that she was used to smoking, took a deep breath, and felt the stimulation of the smoke filling her lungs. Then, she used her usual cold tone to order her subordinates, "Go in and search carefully, don't let anyone go." Yes. With the section chief's order, more than 10 police officers followed behind her and rushed toward the door of the Rulon Group headquarters. When they arrived at the door, Hana didn't knock on the door, nor did she press the doorbell next to it. She just took a step forward and slammed her right hand in front of the door. The next moment, the thick solid wooden door was directly broken with a crisp, crack sound. There was a sturdy bolt behind the wooden door. Logically speaking, even a strong man would not be able to break it. But with Tasha Marinka's palm, the thick door bolt actually broke, as if performing a magic trick. Obviously, Toku Shimarin Hana was definitely not the civilian police officer she appeared to be. Her combat strength was so high that no one in the Metropolitan Police Department could compare to her. Again. The bad habit of the section chief was that he never liked to knock on the door. When their section chief walked inside, the servants who were about to open the door stared at them with their mouths agape. The police officers who were being stared at showed awkward expressions. But no matter what, a search was a search. When the officers from the search department arrived, Mr. Fujiki greeted them politely. Section Chief Toku Shima, all the male members of the Rulon group who meet the age requirements have gathered here. You can start to register one by one. Where is your so-called young master, Ryuto Kiryu? There are too many people here. He is waiting in the living room. I will bring the officers there in a moment. No need, I will personally go and greet him. After glancing at Mr. Fujiki, Inhana walked toward the living room with a cigarette in her mouth. It was as if she didn't care about this group of extreme Dao. This woman, humph. But even so, Mr. Fujiki didn't dare to say anything. After all, there were many rumors about Toku Shimarin Hana, and they were all sensational stories. Basically, the section chief of the search department would do anything to solve a case, and she would never be restrained by something as boring as morality. Her style was very free. She once locked a suspect in a freezer for 48 hours. When he was about to die from the cold, she pulled him out to warm him up. Then she threw him back into the freezer. In the end, the suspect couldn't take it anymore and was forced to confess. She once led a team directly to a certain extreme Dao base and fired heavy firepower without asking until everyone inside was turned into a hornet's nest. She once personally drove a police car to hit a robber who was trying to escape. The robber was directly sent flying dozens of meters away. After landing, she accidentally ran over the robber and turned him into a salted fish. In the eyes of the extreme Dao, this woman was a police officer who was more ruthless than the extreme Dao. She was the type who killed without blinking an eye. And because she was very good at writing reports, Inhana could always use various methods to wash away all the excessive crimes she committed. This led her to rise step by step, and she stepped on countless corpses to reach a high position. Over time, the people in the Yoto circle had formed a consensus, which was to never provoke Toku Shimarin Hana, because no matter how ruthless you were, you would never be as ruthless as her. However, just as advisor Fujiki brought Lin Hua to the reception room, the head of the search department muttered to himself while puffing on a cloud of smoke. Ryuto Kiryu, the man who escaped from Ayam Sama time and time again, and even killed the deputy director of the secret department, Misty Demon. Are you a lucky person? Or do you have the ability to reach this level? I'm really curious. That's right, the main reason why Toku Shimarin Hana came here in person was because she was curious about Ryuto. As a spy of the Tenmu group, she naturally knew a lot of inside information of the group. After all, the name Ryuto Kiryu had long become a big topic of conversation in the group. But curiosity was curiosity. If Ryuto Kiryu was a man with real ability, it would be fine. If he was just a lucky man without any advantages, Toku Shimarin Hana would never let him go. At that time, I will definitely catch you and throw you into the cold room. Hiss. Before Inhana finished this sentence in her heart, she and Fujiki had already arrived in the reception room and saw the handsome man sitting on the sofa like a prince with a glass of red wine in his hand. The moment she saw this young master, Toku Shimarin Hana only felt her heart beat faster, as if it was going to fly out from somewhere with some strange liquid. Her rosy lips opened slightly, and the cigarette in her mouth fell to the ground. Her breathing was rapid, her eyes quickly widened, and her body became stiff. This sudden change was even noticed by consultant Fujiki on the side. For Fujiki, who had been in the underworld for so long and had dealt with Inhana more than once, of course, He knew that this female section chief had a preference for handsome men. This was also human nature. After all, Inhana was a normal woman. It was not strange for her to like handsome men. And Fujiki had to admit that the young man sitting on the sofa was really attractive to women. The young man sitting on the sofa was naturally Ryuto Kiryu, but he didn't look like the usual slovenly little hooligan. The luxurious golden hair was obviously done by the hairstylist. After reperming and dyeing, it showed a texture that was not cheap at all. A few of the golden strands were softly placed on the forehead, and the breath of youth rushed to the face. Such an elegant, upper-class hairstyle and hair color, and the neat gray suit on his body, the spotless black trousers and leather shoes, gave a strong sense of chic. Ryuto's appearance was quite handsome. His skin was white, his nose was straight, and his posture was tall and straight. It was just that he had never tidied himself up properly, and many of his highlights were covered by his fierce aura, so it was not very obvious that he was handsome. Now that his charm had been raised to the level of LV4 charm, international warrior, the temperament that exuded from his gestures was impressive. Coupled with his excellent taste in clothes and proper tidying up, it was natural that he had been reborn. Full of seductive charm, luxurious and with a hint of melancholy at the same time, he was like a noble young master who had been weathered since childhood, but always stuck to himself. This was the feeling that Ryuto Kiryu gave people now. Unknowingly, let alone in Hana, even Fujiki, who had watched Ryuto grow up, was stunned. What's going on? How did young Master Ryuto become so handsome? He was simply not the same person as before. If the average score of Ryuto's appearance and temperament was only 70 to 80 points before, and when he opened his mouth, the current him was already close to the full score of 90 points and above. His originally handsome appearance, coupled with the powerful charm of an international superstar, as well as the meticulous care of his clothing, hairstyle, and makeup, presented this kind of breathtaking feeling. "Oh, you're here, Ms. Tajima." When Tajima in Hana and advisor Fujiki walked over with sluggish steps, Ryuto also slowly stood up. The corner of his mouth raised into an elegant arc, and he spoke to Inhana in a graceful tone. For a moment, Inhana's eyes were filled with a pair of deep and mysterious eyes like moist black jade, exuding a charming charm. Her ears were filled with a voice that did not match her age, but with a rich, mature charm. This guy fell for it. When he felt that this ghost searcher was in a state of being enchanted by his extraordinary charm, Ryuto struck while the iron was hot, picked up a wine glass, and affectionately poured red wine into it and handed it over. "This is 2005 Romani Conti. It's suitable for a beauty like you. How about you taste it with me?" According to Ryuto's knowledge, in addition to liking beautiful boys and smoking, Tajima in Hana also liked to drink. So he prepared the best wine, plus the best of himself, ready to set a trap for this guy. "Me? Huh?" Looking at the wine glass Ryuto handed over, Inhana took a step back and tried to refuse. "Wait, I'm working now, I shouldn't." "Don't say that, just treat it as red grape juice." "Who said you can't drink red grape juice at work? As a person, you should know how to enjoy life. After all, life is short. Right?" After forcefully stuffing the wine glass into Inhana's hand, Ryuto winked at her with his left eye and gave her a charming look. Now, this autumn spinach directly shattered Inhana's last line of defense. She reached out and looked at the glass in her hand, smelled the wine fragrance floating inside, and looked at the handsome boy in front of her. From this moment on, Tajima in Hana fell into the abyss. Chapter 177. Desire was like water. Rationality was like a dam. Rationality usually blocked desire, just like a dam blocking water, preventing the water from flowing downstream. But if the water in the dam was full, or even if there was an explosive growth, there would be problems. Especially when the dam was broken, the scene caused was even more terrifying. Today's Tokushima in Hana was obviously in a state where the dam was broken and the water was everywhere. After all, alcoholics were like this. As long as she took the first sip, it was impossible for her not to take a second sip. It was like, I can only drink a little. After a sip of wine, it would become, I can only drink a little bit. Therefore, after the first sip of wine went into her stomach, Inhana drank faster and faster, and her face became redder and redder. At first, the female section chief seemed to be a little restrained in front of Ryuto. After all, this kid was really too handsome, especially that strange charm that made her heart beat faster. But after 3 or 5 glasses of wine, after the wine gave her courage, she began to lean over with a smile. Ryuto-kun. Can I call you that? She looked at Ryuto with eyes that were about to overflow with desire. She leaned forward slightly, reached for the armrest of the sofa, and put her head close to the man. Because Consultant Fujiki had been driven away, and the reception room was closed, now there were only the two of them here, and no one had to worry about anything. Of course, then I'll call you Inhana. In the face of such a drunk alcoholic, Ryuto put on a professional male PR smile and replied in a charming tone. Ah, you are really understanding. After a few giggles, Inhana turned over with the armrest and sat on Ryuto's knee. Oh. This is really not bad. Although Ryuto was the one being harassed now, he had to say that he felt pretty good now. No matter what, Tokushima Inhana was also a great beauty, and she was the kind of big sister that Ryuto had never met before. She was in her early 30s. From her appearance to the way she dressed, she seemed to belong to the abstinent type. It was as if she had no interest in men at all. She was very cold and unapproachable. But in fact, there was a monster hidden in Lin Hua's heart. It was a monster called the carnivore. It would fly out in the middle of the night and look for handsome men to absorb their vitality. After drinking a few mouthfuls of wine, the woman's inner desires were completely released. Her behavior and expression became bolder, which was in sharp contrast to her appearance. The more serious the ascetic character was on the surface, the more irresistible it was when he revealed his true colors. In addition, her appearance and figure were excellent, so when this woman sat on his lap and felt her supple buttocks pressing against him, Ryuto couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Ryuto-kun, I really want to eat you. Can I? At this moment, Lin Hua reached out and wrapped her arms around Ryuto's neck. She put her head close to his neck. As she spoke, she stuck out her pink tongue and licked there. A slippery and sticky feeling that he had never experienced before spread out. The air was filled with a pink atmosphere, and Ryuto almost had the illusion that he was being eaten. Not good. This was too bad. Originally, Ryuto only planned to seduce this silly woman so that she would be magnanimous in this search. However, he didn't expect Lin Hua's seduction to be so much stronger than he imagined. If this continued, he might end up in trouble. No. How can I let down 3 wives and 1 mother-in-law? I can't give my first time to this woman. If it's not my first time, I can still consider it. So just as Lin Hua straddled him and was about to give Ryuto a passionate French kiss, the latter reached out and pushed her away slightly. Oh, don't be shy, you're so cute, hee. It's not about being shy. There are still a lot of people outside, and they're all brought here by you. Don't mind it, let's have some fun here, they won't come over to fight. Dong, dong dong dong. Just as Lin Hua was about to say, they won't come over to disturb, let me do it, a knock on the door came from outside the reception room. Just in time. When he heard the knock on the door, Ryuto suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Lin Hua, on the other hand, frowned, and a fierce look suddenly appeared on her face. After the knock on the door, an unfamiliar voice from outside shouted inside, Chief Teshima, most of the information of the people outside has been collected, only Ryuto Kiryu is left, is he inside? Bastard, I haven't even had a good time yet, so I have to go back and do it myself, damn it. After gritting her teeth, Lin Hua looked at the little fresh meat in front of her that was almost swallowed into her stomach, and could only get up from the sofa regretfully. Next time, Ryuto-kun, sister is looking forward to seeing you again. Before leaving, Lin Hua kissed Ryuto's face, and after tidying up her appearance, she pushed the door and walked out. After going out, Lin Hua said to the police officer outside angrily, "Let's go, inform everyone to get off work immediately, I have an urgent matter to go home." Ah! When he heard her words, the police officer who came to inquire asked doubtfully, but there is no information about Ryuto Kiryu. Height of 1.9 meters, weight of 230 pounds. Find someone to record the voice, that's all. This is also possible? Originally, the police officer wanted to ask more clearly, but Lin Hua looked at him with angry eyes, and he was scared to turn around and run away. Tonight, Lin Hua was already very annoyed that she didn't have a good time. She couldn't go up and down, so how could she have any thoughts to collect information about Ryuto? She could just deal with it casually. However, next time, sister will definitely collect information for you. He, Ryuto Kiryu, hiss. After sticking out her tongue and licking her rosy lips, Lin Hua led the team away at lightning speed, and she abandoned the team halfway and let them go back to report on their own. She quietly sneaked back home. As for why Lin Hua was in such a hurry to sneak back home, she was probably sleeping. I don't know, and I don't dare to say. Young Master Ryuto, they all left, are you okay here? After sending away the guys from the search department, Consultant Fujiki returned to the reception room again and asked Ryuto, who was wiping his face with a tissue. It's okay, she shouldn't have carefully measured my physical data, so she just fooled around. When Ryuto heard the data that Lin Hua casually reported when she left, he almost laughed on the spot. He was 1.9 meters tall, 230 pounds, and his voice was recorded by a random person. It would be strange if they would find out that he was a criminal. Moreover, this was personally investigated by the section chief, so no one would suspect him of fraud. In other words, judging from Tokushima Lin Hua's usual style, even if someone suspected him of fraud, they wouldn't dare to say it. Thus, with Lin Hua leading the group away, Long Do was able to overcome the crisis caused by him accidentally beating up a member of the imperial family. Thanks to his handsome face, Long Do was able to successfully overcome the crisis. At this moment, Consultant Fujiki looked at Ryuto with a strange look, as if he wanted to say something, but he was too embarrassed to say it. After Ryuto noticed it, he asked casually, Uncle Fujiki, what's wrong? If you have something to say, just say it. You didn't do anything to that woman today, right? After a moment of hesitation, Fujiki asked in a somewhat awkward tone. After all, he was an uncle in his 40s or 50s. It was a bit strange to ask a teenager if he was done to buy a woman in her 30s. It felt like he was a pimp. No, just a little. Phew, that's good. Consultant Fujiki breathed a sigh of relief and smiled bitterly. You have the direct bloodline of the Rulong group. If it was stolen by that woman, it would be troublesome. So that's what you're thinking about. Don't worry, she won't want to steal any bloodline. The process of stealing the bloodline is what she wants. Well, but I didn't think that young master could become so handsome after tidying up. If you go to the nightclub now, most of the girls will be fascinated by you. Suddenly, Consultant Fujiki took 2 steps back and looked at Ryuto with appreciation from top to bottom. Consultant Fujiki had been in the underworld for so long, and he had seen a lot of handsome men and beautiful women in nightclubs. Komidochi, at night, was a real demon's den. All kinds of handsome men and beautiful women walked on the street, especially those male PR men who specialized in cheating women's money were even more handsome. But even the most professional male PR men in Japan might not be as handsome as Ryuto today. In Fujiki's view, his young master's appearance and temperament were magical. It was not as simple as a handsome appearance, but it was an addictive feeling. Although the male PR men in the nightclub looked very handsome, but after looking at them for a while, he could feel that they were just handsome embroidered bags. Other than being handsome, there were some weeds inside, and they were not very useful. But Ryuto was different. The more he looked at him, the more he could feel this man's alluring mellow charm like the Romani Conti in 2005. This was also a matter of course. After all, Ryuto had experienced so many things. His temperament was already very different from ordinary people. How could a group of ordinary handsome men who sold their appearance to make money compare to him? Even if Ryuto were to shoot a movie now, he might immediately become an international level star and become famous overnight. This was the combined power of LV4 charm, plus a good appearance and the aura of a young master. It could be said that he was a walking male bomb. Is that so? I'm so bad as now. After being praised by consultant Fujiki, Ryuto also picked up the phone and looked at his face. Beep beep beep, beep beep beep. At the same time, Colored Glaze's phone call happened to come. She should want to ask about the investigation. By the way, since I'm so handsome now, then I'll just show it to my first wife and see if Colored Glaze likes it. After considering this, Ryuto did not answer the call, but turned his head and called a video invitation. When the video invitation was accepted, Ryuto reached out and touched his hair, and released a charming smile to Colored Glaze. Chapter 178. After the video call connected, Kanzaki Colored Glaze's delicate and beautiful face appeared on the screen. At the same time, she couldn't help but ask, why video call? Colored Glaze originally wanted to ask why a video call was needed. Wouldn't a voice call be better? But halfway through her sentence, she saw the dragon head's face that was several times more handsome than usual. Although Ryuto was usually quite handsome, after specially dressing up and increasing his charm, he had undergone a qualitative leap. He went from a handsome delinquent to a top-notch handsome guy. Thus, when Colored Glaze saw his face, she was instantly stunned. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Ryuto was obviously very satisfied with his first wife's shock. Hee, are you dizzy from my handsomeness? Hurry up and praise me. So he smiled and asked, how is it? Today so stupid. What? But what Ryuto didn't expect was that Colored Glaze didn't hesitate to say, so stupid. She looked at the handsome face that looked like a TV star's on the screen and said in disdain, you did your hair, put on makeup, and even changed into such formal clothes. Who are you? Are you planning to be a male host? Disgusting. You don't have to be so rude. Ryuto originally thought that Colored Glaze would have a wow, you're so handsome, I love you so much type of reaction, but it turned out to be such a reply. She even used the word disgusting. However, when Colored Glaze heard this, she didn't hold back and replied, face? You know what face is? Don't you know what kind of person you are? Do you think it's very dignified for a young master to dress up so extravagantly? The Rulon Group has changed its job to a male host club? You're too. Stop talking nonsense. If you dress up like this again in the future, don't appear in front of me again. Goodbye. Colored Glaze hung up the phone after saying something that sounded very unpleasant. Her tone and attitude were very bad. Just as Ryuto was at a loss for what to do, the dancing costume in Colored Glaze's room revealed a puzzled expression. Young miss, why are you so angry? He seems to have deliberately dressed up to please you. What's wrong with that? Dancing Costume had also seen Ryuto's appearance on the phone. At least in Dancing Costume's opinion, he was indeed very handsome and could attract girls. Generally speaking, wasn't it normal for a young man to look for a girl after carefully dressing up to let her see his most handsome side? Moreover, Ryuto was indeed very handsome after dressing up. Dancing Costume could not help but feel her heart beat faster when she looked at him. Since Colored Glaze liked Ryuto to begin with, she should be even more excited. Therefore, Dancing Costume could not understand why Colored Glaze was so angry. However, Colored Glaze heard her words and said angrily, what's wrong with that? You should ask yourself, what's so good about that exaggerated and gaudy dressing up? It's completely tasteless. It's completely tasteless. In fact, Ryuto usually has no taste. Speaking of this, Dancing Costume could not help but think of Ryuto's usual appearance. Although Ryuto usually could not be said to be ugly, there was a lingering, ruffian aura that could not be removed. It was the kind of feeling that was unique to gangsters. Coupled with that guy's glib tongue and frivolous expression, he gave people the feeling that although he was handsome, he was also a ruffian. However, Ryuto just now was different. After tidying up and changing into a suit, and after adjusting his appearance, the ruffian aura on him had mostly dissipated. It was as if he had taken on a new look. If Dancing Costume had to choose between the Ryuto just now and the usual Ryuto, she would definitely choose the serious young master in a suit, and not the usual talkative guy. Dancing Costume, if you only look at the surface, then you're still at the first level. However, Colored Glaze pursed her lips, as if expressing regret at Dancing Costume's level. No, miss, do you really think that Ryuto just now was not handsome? Handsome my ass. It's so different from usual. I don't feel anything about it. Usual. Do you think that he's more handsome normally? Of course, the Ryuto that I like is not such a superficial person. He has an unruly gaze, a fierce expression, and a sinister smile. He exudes an aura of not a good person from head to toe. As Colored Glaze spoke, she lifted her beautiful chin slightly, as if she was recalling her memories of Ryuto Kiryu. In the gloomy seaside cottage, in front of the god statue in the courtyard, in the garden of the school. The man who appeared in front of Lu Li was always like this, and not the kind of rich young master with a greasy hair and powdered face. I don't think that Miss's description of him is a compliment at all. Seeing that Miss seemed to be immersed in her beautiful memories, Dancing Costume could not help but break out in a cold sweat. Indeed, he's not a good person, but he understands what I want and what I need. This is something that no other good person can do. Colored Glaze completely understood Dancing Costume's meaning, but in reality, Dancing Costume was indeed on the first level, Ryuto was on the 5th level, and Colored Glaze was in the atmosphere. In Colored Glaze's past life, there were many people like Ryuto who wore a suit and combed his hair. They looked quite handsome, and they behaved very elegantly. In her past life, Colored Glaze had seen a lot of them. Every time she went to a banquet or other activities, similar guys would swarm over and show their gentlemanly demeanor to the eldest daughter of the Kanzaki family. Indeed, they were very handsome, cultured, had good family backgrounds, and were very knowledgeable. From a societal perspective, they were impeccable. However, such people dared to be rude to the Kamiyoshi? Dared to say, "I'm marrying your miss," to a cat house? Dared to disfigure the statue that the Kamiyoshi had worshipped for generations? Most of the righteous people were dog butchers, and most of the heartless people were scholars. Those young people who were born in a prestigious family, had 3 to 5 degrees from famous schools, worked out every day to maintain their physical and mental health, looked handsome, dressed fashionably, had an annual salary of tens of millions, and had a limitless future. Who would be willing to offend the Kamiyoshi clan for Colored Glaze? Who would be willing to gamble their life and future? No, it was impossible. Only that fierce-looking young man with a head of poorly dyed blonde hair and an unruly aura could do this. I had already given up on my life a long time ago. I planned to be a vegetarian king like Mother for 20 years, and when I was old, I would come out and find a random man to have a child with. It was that little punk who gave me hope, so in my heart, he was the most handsome. After sighing, Colored Glaze said in a firm tone, "Miss." After understanding Colored Glaze's meaning, Dancing Costume couldn't help but feel moved, and her impression of that stinky punk seemed to have improved. But she immediately reacted, and showed a strange motherly smile to Colored Glaze. "Dancing Costume? Why are you looking at me like that?" Being stared at by Dancing Costume with such an expression, it was Colored Glaze's turn to feel strange. "Because I suddenly realized that this seems to be the first time you've said that you like that little hooligan. It's really worth celebrating." Before this, whenever Dancing Costume asked Colored Glaze if she liked Ryuto, Colored Glaze would say, "Who likes him? I'm just using that guy to do things." But just now, Colored Glaze didn't give a perfunctory answer, and directly expressed her feelings, which made Dancing Costume very surprised. "Huh? Is that so? It seems to be true." After being reminded by Dancing Costume, Colored Glaze realized that she really did say something she shouldn't have. For example, "The Ryuto I like isn't such a superficial person. In my heart, he's the most handsome," and so on. Normally, Colored Glaze would never say such things even if she was beaten to death. Suddenly, Colored Glaze's face turned as red as a ripe apple, and even her round earlobes were dyed red, looking very cute. Dancing Costume, I order you to forget everything you heard before. Ahem, what should I do? I'm a person who can forget, but I accidentally typed those words into a text message. Text message? Wait. Who do you want to text? The sender seems to be Ryuto Kiryu. Miss, don't come over, okay? Or I might accidentally press the send button. Dancing costume. You dare threaten me? I don't dare, I don't dare. Compared to the miss who dares to directly express her love, my courage is far inferior. Ha 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 ha. Although it was already late at night, Miss Kanagawa's room was still filled with a joyous atmosphere, mixed with a certain someone's shameful screams and so on. Although he didn't know what happened, Dancing Costume definitely didn't send the text message in the end. Otherwise, Ryuto wouldn't have come to school so listlessly the next morning like a rooster that had lost a fight. Disgusting. Colored Glaze actually thinks I'm disgusting. It's over, this time, her favorability towards me will definitely plummet. Unlike last night, Ryuto now looked quite dispirited. His hair had returned to its previous poorly dyed style, and his makeup was nowhere to be seen. He was once again wearing that loose-fitting school uniform. To put it simply, the elegant young master from last night had completely disappeared, and the vicious little ruffian from before had returned to his daily routine. Originally, Ryuto had intended to continue last night's style. After all, everyone wanted to be praised by others, and being praised by a group of people for being handsome was definitely better than being called a ruffian by a group of people. But since Colored Glaze didn't like it, he could only return to his original style and not do anything else. Just as Ryuto was walking towards the school gate in a dispirited manner, Colored Glaze and Dancing Costume's figures appeared not too far away. Hey! Good morning! Because he was scolded last night, Ryuto was somewhat timid as he greeted the Mississippi. Oh, you finally decided not to play a role that doesn't suit you. Colored Glaze revealed a relaxed smile when she saw Ryuto's familiar appearance, and laughed at his misfortune. Don't scold me, I know that look is stupid, okay? That's right, you are you, there's no need to do anything else, isn't it better to stay the same? Colored Glaze took 2 steps forward, reached out and straightened the crooked tie on Ryuto's neck, and patted it with satisfaction. That's it, see you at noon, bye-bye. After finishing this unusually intimate action, Colored Glaze smiled and waved at the surprised Ryuto, turned around and walked towards the school with Dancing Costume. What happened? Miss Colored Glaze seems to be in a good mood today. Isn't she mad at me? And her favorability doesn't seem to have dropped. I don't understand. Looking at the girl's back as she left, Long Do scratched his head in confusion. He had no idea what was going on. He was like a dumb goose that was favored by a goddess but didn't know it. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.